Chapter 70, Principal, do you have any sacred kung fu to teach me? The inspection in the morning lasted until 12 noon. Wang Teng and his friends followed the crowd and left the martial disciple training hall of Jisin Martial House. Many of the students were discussing the results of the inspection just now. That Wang Teng from Donghai number 1, where did he pop out from? He's so amazing. You're right. He's an extreme martial disciple. He's just one step away from becoming a martial warrior. He must have purposely hidden his true power. He was probably waiting to make his mark during the university entrance exam and attract everyone's attention. That's so scheming of him. What a sinister fellow. As Wang Ting listened to the conversation, he suddenly felt that it sounded wrong. His face turned black. Do you know how to speak properly? Damn it, how am I a sinister fellow? Don't leave. Explain what you just said. If Lin Chuhan and Yang Jian hadn't pulled him back, Wang Ting really wanted to dash forward and pull the examinees into a corner to have a good chat about life. This bunch of little brats hadn't experienced the brutality of society. They dared to say anything. I, Wang Teng, am an upright and forthright person. How can I be a sinister fellow? What a joke. All right, they were just complaining about you. It's not a huge matter. Why are you so narrow-minded? Lin Chuhan said while suppressing her laughter. Easy for you to say. They are not complaining about you. Wang Teng scoffed. Yang Jian chuckled secretly. He quickly changed the topic and said, have you heard the results of the advanced stage martial disciples from Huiying High School just now? I heard the announcement of one of them. He was closer to me. His name is Qin Dao, strength 901, speed 3, 6 seconds, and physique 90, Lin Chuhan said with a stern expression. Wow, he's really strong, Yang Jian exclaimed in surprise. I heard one of their results too. Lin Qing, strength 866, speed 4, 1 seconds, physique 87. It looks like the martial disciples from Huiying are all quite strong, Lin Chuhan lamented. What are you afraid of? We have a boss with us. We can definitely beat them. They should be the ones getting worried now. Yang Jian looked at Wang Teng and smiled. How's the result of the other 3 advanced stage martial disciples from our school? Wang Teng ignored Yang Jian's words and asked. I'm not sure. I don't think they were able to take the morning inspection. They probably had to wait until the afternoon. Lin Chuhan shook her head. Zhu Wu finished his inspection. Strength 915, speed 3, 9 seconds, physique 93, Yang Jian suddenly said. Zhu Wu was one of the 5 advanced stage martial disciples from Donghai number 1 high school. Oh, his result is probably the highest, right? Wang Teng said in surprise. Brother, how can you say that so shamelessly? Yang Jian looked at him from the corner of his eyes. There's no point in comparing with me. Wang Teng pretended to be proud like an old master. Seriously. TSK. Lin Chuhan and Yang Jian expressed their disdain. We know you're powerful, so can you keep your arrogance and self-indulgence to yourself? Oh right, I need to call my mom. Lin Chuhan suddenly remembered this. She hurriedly took out her phone and called her house. Oh my god, I forgot that I need to tell my parents this piece of good news quickly. Yang Jian slapped his forehead. The moment they passed the level inspection, they would head to the next exam venue. The examinees would stay there for 2 to 3 days. The examinees that didn't pass would be sent home directly. The ones that passed could only contact their families using their phones to tell them the good news. Wang Teng took out his phone and hesitated for a moment before dialing Li Zumei's number. Ring, ring, ring. After a few seconds, the call was picked up. Hey, son, have you finished your exam? What time are you coming back? I'm cooking now. It's all right if you didn't pass. We are mentally prepared. You can come home and prepare to repeat your year obediently. Before Wang Ting could open his mouth, Li Xiumei started blabbering non-stop. Mom, I passed the level inspection. Wang Ting took the chance when Li Xiumei paused between her words and said hurriedly. You passed. I knew it. I knew that you won't be able to pass. ISNT that very normal. Li Xiumei suddenly stopped midway. Then, her pitch rose by an octave. What? You passed. Yes, I accidentally passed, Wang Teng replied. At this moment, Lin Chuhan and Yang Jian had already finished their calls. When they heard this sentence, they had a new understanding of Wang Teng's shamelessness. Accidentally. Where did his face go? Wang Ting spent much effort before he finally managed to convince Li Xiaomei that he had really passed the martial disciple level inspection. Li Xiaomei was thrilled and worried at the same time. Although passing the inspection was something to be happy about, she had to worry about the actual combat assessment later on. She stopped cooking and wanted to call Wang Shengguo. But she remembered that he had gone overseas to discuss an important project with a business partner. It was better not to increase his psychological burden at this moment. When Wang Ting went for his martial arts exam, Wang Shengguo left on a business trip. He never expected Wang Ting to pass the inspection. Li Xiaomei put down her phone. She was anxious and all alone at home, unable to do anything. She could only silently pray that Wang Ting would return home safe and sound. As for whether he could get into the martial arts course, she didn't really care. In the afternoon, the examinees had their lunch in the Jisin Martial House cafeteria. To display the generosity of Jisin Martial House, their lunch was buffet style, and it was free. They allowed the examinees to eat until they were full. Wang Teng, Lin Chuhan, and Yang Jian sat together at a table and ate their lunch. The other martial arts examinees from Class 8 also gathered around them and greeted Wang Teng as though they were buddies. Before knowing Wang Teng's ability, all of them had kept their distance from him. Now, when they learned that he had actually reached the stage of an extreme martial disciple, their attitudes changed. They came over to get familiar with him. Even the examinees from other classes walked over to witness our young Master Wang's unmatched demeanor. Actually, they just wanted to see how amazing he was. Unfortunately, young Master Wang put on a cold face throughout the entire time. He seemed even more cold and distant than he was normally. In the past, you gave me the cold shoulder. Today, I'll make sure I'm above your station. Chimpy. Also, that person is so ugly. Is that a man or a woman? Oh my God, this person has a body odor. Don't come close to me, I reject everyone ugly. After lunch, there was an hour of rest. The leaders of Donghai No. 1 High School took this opportunity to walk over together with wide smiles on their faces. You must be Wang Teng, right? Indeed, you are a fine-looking man, and you're extraordinary. Principal, do you have any sacred kung fu to teach me? Will you ask me to save the world after that? Wang Teng suddenly asked. The principal. Lin Chuhan. Yang Jian. The students around them. Haha, you're really humorous. The principal laughed awkwardly. You don't. What a pity. Wang Ting gave a regretful expression. He looked as though he really wanted to save the world. The principal was speechless. He felt that the professionalism he had accumulated for so many years was about to collapse. Stupid brat, can you be serious? I'm talking about proper business with you. Who's telling you to save the world? Is that something we need to be concerned about? Wang Ting noticed the bulging veins on the principal's forehead. He said hurriedly, Principal, what did you want to say just now? Please continue. The principal took a deep breath and resumed his amiable and pleasant expression. He said, I came over to thank you for earning glory for the school. At the same time, I hope that you will continue to work hard in the future segments of the exam and strive to be the top student in the actual combat assessment. We hope that you will win honor for our Donghai No. 1 High School. Principal, winning honor for the school is what we should do. However, my capability is limited. My results have been a mess in the past, and I've always been a hopeless student in the eyes of the teachers. I have the heart, but I lack the ability. Wang Ting gave a sad face. The principal looked at the student in front of him and realized that he wasn't like an ordinary high school student. If it was other students, they would have patted their chest and promised to work hard after hearing his compliments. However, Wang Ting wasn't moved at all. He even dared to act dumb in front of the principal. You're a martial arts examinee. What do your normal results have to do with this? At the very least, even if Wang Ting wasn't able to pass the papers for the martial arts exam, he just needed to perform better during the actual combat assessment. He was an extreme martial disciple. The top universities would still fight to give him special admission. It looks like this fellow wouldn't commit himself until he was certain of success. Wang Ting, you don't know that our school has a reward system for martial arts examinees, right? If you're able to get into the top 50 of the martial arts exam, you will be rewarded with a yellow rank low-class energy stone. If you get into the top 40, you will get 3 yellow rank low-class energy stones. Enter the top 30, and you will get 5 energy stones. If it's the top 20, you will get 7. The top 10 will be rewarded with 10 energy stones. If you're the top 3 of the cohort, you will not only receive energy stones, but you will also have a bottle of spiritual dan. The principal looked at Wang Ting and gave him a mysterious smile. He said slowly, if you are the first, you will not only get all the rewards I just mentioned, but there will be another mystery reward on top that will definitely not disappoint you. Energy stone, spiritual dan, mystery reward. Wang Ting was immediately hooked. These rewards were getting more and more attractive. Energy stones, spiritual dan. He didn't expect Donghai number 1 to be so rich. Chapter 71. You're the boss. You can do what you want. Wang Ting had done his homework. Energy stones were formed by congregating the force within the heaven and earth into the minerals. These minerals were buried deep beneath the earth due to the special terrains. After a long period of development, these minerals slowly turned into stones with force crystals. They were mostly found in the Xingwu continent. The earth was only invaded by force 30 years ago. It hadn't been long enough to form energy stones. As for spiritual dan, they were formed by alchemists who fused all kinds of spiritual herbs and medicines using special methods. These spiritual dans had many different uses. Only martial warriors were able to use these 2 resources, though. Of course, they also played a vital role for advanced stage martial disciples seeking to break through into martial warriors. To some people, if they weren't able to absorb enough force during the process of breaking through to become a martial warrior, all their previous efforts would be wasted. At moments like this, possessing multiple energy stones that contained force or a piece of spiritual dan was the best guarantee. However, energy stones and spiritual dan were important resources that were only given to the various powerful factions in large quantities. For instance, schools, the military, or top-class martial arts academies. Only martial warriors who belonged to these factions would get to enjoy these resources. As for other smaller factions, the resources they enjoyed were pretty limited. Even in the market, only large brands officially recognized by the government were able to sell these items. After all, if these resources landed in the hands of some conspirators and they groomed a bunch of evil martial warriors, it would be huge trouble. These resources were available in the black market but in minimal quantities. One couldn't get it even if they had the money. It was undoubtedly extravagant for the principal of Donghai No. 1 High School to give these 2 items as rewards to his students. As for the mystery reward he mentioned, Wang Ting didn't know what to say. Was this how these people played? The last time, Zhu Baiyun had acted in a similar manner. Now, even his principal was playing the same game. This was so boring. How old were they? Principal, I think that the reward system is really good. It's able to stimulate the examinees to do better. I believe that for the university entrance exam this year, our school will definitely achieve good results. You can just prepare the rewards with a calm heart, Wang Ting said righteously. He didn't mention a word about himself in his reply. But, the principal's eyes lit up. He exchanged a glance with Wang Ting and gave a meaningful smile. There was an unspoken mutual understanding. I can feel at ease now that you've given your word. All right, I will not disturb your rest anymore. Examinees like you who have completed your inspection can rest in the afternoon. You will head to the next exam venue at night. The principal finished speaking and placed his hand behind his back. Then, he left with the other leaders of the school. Why haven't I heard that there are rewards for the martial arts exam before? Wang Ting asked Lin Chuhan, who was beside him. There have always been rewards, but you just didn't take notice of it. You should be ashamed. In the past, you either skipped classes or didn't pay attention in class. It will be strange if you know about it. Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes. All right, it's my fault. Wang Teng laughed awkwardly. What do you plan to do in the afternoon? Yang Jian interrupted them at this moment. The cafeteria will be having a live broadcast of the level inspection in the afternoon. I'll pass my time there, Lin Chuhan suggested. This is a good idea. We do have to take note of the level inspection in the afternoon. Who knows? A few black horses might emerge among the remaining examinees. Yang Jian nodded. He looked at Wang Teng and asked, Young Master Wang, what about you? What plans do you have? I will find a place to sleep. Wang Teng yawned. Fine, you're the boss. You can do whatever you want. Yang Jian gave in. In the end, Wang Teng didn't go anywhere. They were still in the middle of their exam, so even though he had completed his assessment, he couldn't leave. He could only stay in the cafeteria obediently with the rest of the students. 1 hour of resting time passed quickly. Those that hadn't taken their level inspection entered the exam venue one after another. A new round of assessment officially kicked off. The students from Class 8 were all gathered together. They were watching the live broadcast of the inspection. Occasionally, they would give some comments. Lin Chuhan and Yang Jian found the live broadcast very engaging. They soon started discussions with the other classmates. Wang Ting sat at the side and swiped his phone in the midst of his boredom. Actually, most of the examinees were intermediate stage martial disciples. There were comparatively lesser advanced stage martial disciples. Almost half an hour passed before advanced stage martial disciples started appearing. Look, it's Yang Peng from Huiying High School. Strength 924, Speed 3, 6 seconds, Physique 93. Yang Jian suddenly exclaimed. He attracted everyone's attention with his shout. Instantly, everyone started discussing the guy. His results are on par with our school's Ju Wu. His strength and speed are even better than Ju Wu. Their physique is actually the same. If they have a duel, Ju Wu will be at a disadvantage. That's hard to say. Although Ju Wu's strength and speed are weaker, you mustn't forget that a person's ability consists of their basic battle techniques too. That's right. If Ju Wu has a better grasp of his basic battle techniques than Yang Peng, it will be tough to say who will win. Everyone couldn't help but compare the ability of these two youngsters. When the students from Huiying High School heard the discussions of the students from Donghai No. 1 High School, they revealed a proud expression on their faces. Look, our Huiying has powerful advanced stage martial disciples too. We are as strong as you. Why are you being so arrogant? However, when they saw Wang Ting scrolling through his phone in boredom at the side, they immediately felt depressed. Even when an advanced stage martial disciple like Yang Peng appeared, he didn't show any hint of concern. The distance between Yang Peng and Wang Ting was still a little wide. With this big boss leading the Donghai No. 1 High School, it would be difficult for Huiying High School to surpass them this year. Infuriating. How did this monster appear in Donghai No. 1 High School? The students from Huiying High School were unhappy, but there was nothing they could do. Their hands were tied, unless a hidden black horse appeared in their school. And this horse had to be as black as Wang Teng. The level inspection finally came to a close. There were many advanced stage martial disciples toward the end, but none of their abilities exceeded that of Ju Wu and Yang Peng. Most of these students' strengths didn't exceed 900. Their speed was between 5 to 4 seconds, and their physique was 80+. Only 1 or 2 went past the 90 mark. There was still a difference between them and Ju Wu and Yang Peng. 5 p.m. The level inspection was all completed. All the examinees were split into 2 large groups. One group were the failures, who would be sent home immediately. The other group consisted of the people who would be heading to the next exam venue right away. Liu Wenxia stood in front of all the examinees in the plaza of Jisin Martial House. His voice spread throughout the square. It's a pity that some of you didn't manage to pass. However, all of you are still young. You will have another chance next year. As long as the martial arts exam is your ambition and you never give up, I believe that you will pass the martial arts exam and enter a university one day. Our country is placing more and more importance on martial arts. I'm sure all of you can see this. Thus, don't give up easily. There are still opportunities for you. I hope that I will see you again next year. The unsuccessful students were feeling dejected, and some were even having second thoughts. However, when they heard his words, their thoughts became firm again. If they couldn't pass this year, they could retake the exam next year or the year after. Martial arts was already the trend of this era. If they couldn't become martial warriors, they would be lagging. No one wanted to be in the lowest class of society. Chapter 72. Come and sing, no need to feel shy. The examinees who passed the level inspection were currently sitting in the buses. A long line of buses was formed as they headed towards a certain direction. At the start of the day, there were close to 3,000 martial arts examinees. Now, after the level inspection, less than half remained. There were only around 1,000 people left. The rejection rate was quite high. The buses drove for approximately an hour before slowing down gradually. During the entire trip, the curtains on the buses were closed, so the examinees didn't know where they were. Get down the bus. After the bus stopped, Liu Wenxi's voice was heard outside. The examinees got down the bus. They soon realized that there was actually a heavily guarded military camp in front of them, with a sentry placed at the entrance. Soldiers stood there with rune rifles in their hands as they scanned the people who came. A solemn atmosphere filled up the air. Instantly, all the examinees became reserved. No one dared to speak loudly. The martial arts exam is in a military camp. However, there were still people discussing in hushed voices. This is the martial arts exam. It's much stricter than the normal university entrance exam. Even the exam venue is in the military camp. This is extremely frightening. No noise is allowed in the military camp. Be quiet. Liu Wenxia frowned and scolded the examinees. Instantly, the soft discussions that sounded like flies buzzing disappeared entirely. All the examinees looked at him intently. At this moment, a middle-aged man wearing a military uniform walked over. You've finally arrived. Sorry to make you wait so long, said Liu Wenxia politely. Follow me in. However, you have to park your cars outside. The man wearing a military uniform didn't say much. He led the examinees straight into the military camp. The examinees queued up in a long line. Under the lead of Liu Wenxia and the man wearing a military uniform, they walked through the gates. There was a round of checking and scanning before they entered the military camp. The entire military camp seemed exceptionally spacious. It was very quiet, and the atmosphere was solemn. Occasionally, soldiers on duty would walk past them. 3 steps a post and 5 steps a sentry. The straight backs, the stern and resolute faces, and the neat and uniform steps were all exuding the aura soldiers should possess. The examinees finally experienced what was meant by the soldiers' strength of character. So handsome. The eyes of the ladies lit up when they saw the soldiers, each exuding a unique aura. They almost wanted to rush forward and get their signature. When the man wearing a military uniform in front saw this scene, he burst out laughing. Ladies, if you lay your eyes on any of the soldiers, go ahead and chase them. I guarantee with my conscience that our soldiers are the best and most outstanding men. The ladies couldn't help but feel shy when they heard this. But, who knew what they were thinking deep down? Wang Teng couldn't help but glance at Lin Chuhan. Fortunately, she didn't get enchanted by the soldiers. The male students were already unhappy when they saw the ladies get infatuated with the soldiers. They got even more furious when they heard the man's words. You are outstanding, but you are not the most outstanding or the best. There will always be people better than you. If not, where do you place us? These martial arts examinees were naturally all proud and arrogant. How could they admit defeat easily, especially in front of the ladies? Ha ha ha, you little fellows, if you are not convinced, we can have a competition tonight. The man wearing a military uniform laughed loudly. The students instantly got excited. They seemed eager to give it a try. Second Lieutenant Luo, they still have an exam tomorrow. Please don't cause trouble for me, Liu Wenxia said helplessly. What's the problem? They just have their papers tomorrow. It won't affect them much, the man wearing a military uniform replied nonchalantly. Don't say this to me. Tell this to your boss. Go and say this to Governor Jiang. Liu Wenxia rolled his eyes. Boring. The man wearing a military uniform pouted. A few moments later, He led everyone in front of a row of wooden houses. This is where you will be living. There will be 4 people in one room. Please find your own roommates. I will give you half an hour to tidy up. Half an hour later, we will start dinner on schedule. If anyone misses it, you will have to sleep hungry tonight. Also, I have to remind you that you must obey the military rules since you are in the military camp. All the rooms must be neat and tidy. You must place your luggage properly and not throw them everywhere. You have to fold your blankets and your pillows into squares when you're not sleeping. We will have people checking on you. If anyone can't do this, they will be disqualified from the exam. After the man in a military uniform finished speaking, the students' expressions changed. They would get disqualified if they didn't fold their blankets properly. What kind of stupid rule is this? Second Lieutenant Luo is right. Since you've entered the military camp, you need to obey the military rules. You will be punished if you make a mistake. There will be no exception. Thus, don't think that you can act fearlessly just because you are talented. I have already reminded you. You can decide what you want to do. Liu Wenxia nodded and said. We have already started counting down. You only have half an hour. Hurry up and move. Second Lieutenant Luo suddenly shouted. His expression was stern and cold. The amiable feeling a moment ago had vanished into thin air. Go ahead. Liu Wenxia instructed the students. The examinees quickly started moving. Half an hour wasn't too much or too little. Some ladies were extremely slow in tidying up their belongings, so they didn't dare to waste any more time. The examinees were all in a flurry. The arrogant and proud appearance they put up a while ago were all thrown to the back of their minds now. The man wearing a military uniform smiled and said to Liu Wenxia, "These fellows lack a beating. Give them to me for a week. I'll make sure that they become docile and obedient." Haha, you're really not afraid of trouble. Some of them possess the potential to become martial warriors. We don't know how high they will climb in the future. Aren't you scared that they will take revenge on you when the time comes? Liu Wenxia teased him. Haha, I've groomed many martial warriors. If there weren't 100, there should be 50. Why will I be afraid of these little babies? Second Lieutenant Luo replied in disdain. Fine, 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 you're impressive. Wang Ting and Yang Jian were in the same room. The other 2 roommates were also from Class 8. Everyone knew each other, so it would save much trouble when they lived together. As for Lin Chuhan, she lived with another 3 female students. She was quite popular in class. Many people looked for her to ask her questions about their studies. Although she was a little quiet and cold, she always helped her classmates whenever they had any problems. Half an hour passed very quickly. Soon, Second Lieutenant Luo's voice was heard from outside. Come out and gather. The examinees didn't dare to dawdle around. They quickly ran out. Fortunately, half an hour was enough for them. The ladies didn't dare to waste any time either and quickly tidied their luggage. Then, they waited to gather. From the front to the back, number off, the examinees lined up neatly. When they heard what he said, they immediately started numbering off from the first person. 1, 2, 3. It didn't take long to complete the attendance. There were a total of 1,352 examinees. Very good, everyone is present. It looks like you remembered what I said. Second Lieutenant Luo nodded his head in satisfaction. He continued, now, follow me to the cafeteria for your dinner. The examinees followed Second Lieutenant Luo and arrived at the cafeteria. There were already many soldiers having their meals inside. Only one area was empty. It was obvious that this space was prepared for the examinees. When the soldiers dining there saw this bunch of examinees, they raised their heads and sized them up. However, soon after, they lowered their heads back and continued eating. The entire process was extremely quiet. Half an hour. Gather outside when you finish eating. Once the order was given, the examinees charged into the cafeteria. They found their seats and sat down to have their dinner. They had only been in the military for a short time, but they had already started executing every order without fail. To hell with executing every order without fail. They were mainly afraid of getting disqualified from the exam. The examinees had no one to complain to. They had already cursed Second Lieutenant Luo hundreds of times in their hearts. They silently swore that they would never apply for military academies in the future. This was too disgusting. After everyone finished eating, it was already 7:30 p.m. The lights in the camp were lit up, and military songs were playing loudly in the field. The solemn military camp appeared a little more lively because of the song. "Young ladies, young men, are you interested in singing a few songs?" Second Lieutenant Luo smiled and asked. "Are there any beautiful sister soldiers?" "There's nothing we can't sing." Someone was exceptionally bold and shouted this sentence. Instantly, there was an uproar among the crowd. "Oh, that's right. Are there pretty sister soldiers? We can't have a duel, but we can compete in singing. Good riddance." Second Lieutenant Luo laughed in anger. He had never seen such an unbridled bunch of people before. Come, let's go over and have a competition. If you win, we will let you take a look at our military bell. You can't go back on your words." The examinees got bolder when they noticed that he didn't mention getting them disqualified from their martial arts exam. They even dared to challenge Second Lieutenant Luo. Liu Wenxia shook his head when he saw this. This Second Lieutenant Luo wasn't an easy person to deal with. They still had an exam tomorrow. Would it be all right for them to play so hard at night? But, as he looked at how excited the examinees were, he felt that he should just let them be. Forget it. They can use this chance to relax. I wonder how the examinees that went to Balian Marshall House and Leitang Marshall House are. What's the situation in their military camps? A leader from the Ministry of Education standing beside Liu Wenxia suddenly asked. They don't have an unreliable leader like Second Lieutenant Luo, so they should be fine. Another leader from the Ministry of Education smiled and replied. Ha ha ha, that's true. Second Lieutenant Luo brought the examinees to the field and shouted at the soldiers who were singing. "Brothers, this bunch of brats heard you singing and felt unconvinced. They want to compete with you. What do you think? Let's compete." No one is backing down. A soldier that looked like the platoon leader walked over and said, "Let's compete. Let's compete." The other soldiers got excited too. They didn't back down and started cheering. "Let's compete. We're not afraid of you." The competitiveness of the male students was aroused. They wanted to perform well in front of the ladies. Who knew? They might pass the martial arts exam and even return home with a girlfriend. They felt happy just thinking about it. Immediately, singing voices were heard on the field. The sounds of clapping, accompaniments, and cheering merged to become a beautiful symphony. Tonight was a restless night. Chapter 73, Star Bone. The next day. The exam paper was at 9 a.m. However, at 7 a.m., the examinees were woken up by Second Lieutenant Luo's whistle. Yesterday, they had a really good time. But, in the end, this bunch of examinees couldn't win against the soldiers. All the soldiers had really loud voices. Their singing skills were not bad, either, and their voices didn't go hoarse even after 2 hours of singing. They couldn't afford to provoke them. Time to leave, time to leave. The male students didn't manage to see the military bell and had even embarrassed themselves. The examinees woke up with a start when they heard the whistle. They were in a daze. But, when they remembered what Second Lieutenant Luo had said yesterday night, they sprung up immediately. Disqualified from the exam? They were awake. They were entirely awake. Everyone used their fastest speed to tidy themselves up and rushed out of the barracks. They gathered in front of Second Lieutenant Luo. When they looked at Second Lieutenant Luo, everyone had one single expression on their faces, hidden bitterness. But, Second Lieutenant Luo just ignored them. He chatted happily with Liu Wenxia and the other leaders from the Ministry of Education. Occasionally, he would look at this watch. Everyone gritted their teeth in hatred. All right, it's time. Gather and number off. The examinees finished numbering off, just like last night. Naturally, no one would fumble the ball at a critical moment like this. Even if they were slower, the student beside them would help. Second Lieutenant Luo brought everyone to the cafeteria for breakfast. Then, he led them to a building. The examinees waited for an entire hour before the exam started. 2 hours later, the bell rang. The examinees left the exam venue. The paper exam went smoothly. At least, this was how Wang Ting felt. But, looking at the faces of some examinees, they didn't seem to have done well. They sighed and moaned the moment they came out. Sigh, I didn't study some of the exam topics. I'm dead. Yes. We only had 2 weeks to prepare. There's not enough time at all. I do have some impressions of some questions, but I just can't remember the answer. What did you choose for the third multiple choice? Is it A? ISNT it B? I chose C. F *** K. I chose D. Wang Ting almost burst out laughing when he heard the students discussing beside him. There were only 4 choices for a single question. They chose all of them. This was hilarious. It looks like you scored quite well. Wang Ting saw a relaxed smile on Lin Chuhan's face. Not bad. It's not difficult. Lin Chuhan didn't deny it. As expected, for a top student like her, exam papers were a piece of cake. I did say that the paper exam this year wouldn't be difficult. Yang Jian ran over and asked for compliments. Before this, he had already told them that the paper wouldn't be difficult due to the exceptional circumstances this year. Unexpectedly, he was right. There was nothing to do in the afternoon, so the examinees took a tour around the military camp with Second Lieutenant Luo leading the way. They also looked at the soldiers having their training. Of course, they were not allowed to visit certain confidential areas. While watching the soldiers' training, Wang Ting picked up some strength and speed attributes. But, he couldn't get too close, so he couldn't collect those that were further from him. Also, pure strength and speed attributes didn't affect him much. To a martial warrior, force was the foundation. The stronger your force, the stronger your physique. Your strength and speed would increase along with it. This was the difference between martial warriors and martial disciples. After that, Second Lieutenant Luo brought the examinees to the shooting range to play with guns. He allowed the examinees to have fun. Wang Ting was delighted. He didn't expect this benefit. Gun skill *1 gun skill *1 After a round of collection, Wang Teng's gun kung fu finally changed digits. Gun kung fu, 2/10, foundation. It rose from 1.8 to 2 points. It's still better than nothing. Wang Ting congratulated and consoled himself at the same time. Unfortunately, even in the military's shooting range, he didn't see any gun kung fu attributes. 9 p.m. Wang Ting was just preparing to rest when Liu Wenxia came to look for him. Uncle, why are you here? Yang Jian, who was lying on the bed and about to sleep, sprung up when he saw Liu Wenxia entering the room. I came to speak to Wang Ting, said Liu Wenxia. Speak to me. Wang Ting was surprised. He had no interaction with Liu Wenxia. Why was he looking for him? That's right. Wang Ting, can we go outside to speak? Liu Wenxia nodded. The two of them walked out of the barracks and found a secluded corner. Uncle Liu, why are you looking for me? Wang Ting asked. Liu Wenxia was delighted when he heard the way Wang Ting addressed him. This young man had tremendous potential, but he still respected him greatly. He smiled and said, I'm not the one looking for you. Someone wants to meet you. Someone wants to see me. Who is it? Wang Ting felt even more puzzled. Liu Wenxia tilted his body. A slightly plump middle-aged man walked out from behind the barracks. It's me. Student Wang Ting, it's not so easy to see you, the middle-aged man smiled and said. This is our director Liu Wenxia introduced in a respectful tone. Director Wang Ting was shocked. He thought of Liu Wenxi's identity. This director must be the highest-ranking official in the Ministry of Education. May I know why you are looking for me? Asked Wang Ting. Director noticed that Wang Ting had already guessed his identity, so he smiled and replied, Wang Ting, you must have already become a martial warrior. Wang Ting was dumbfounded. Have I exposed myself? How did he notice it? That's impossible. I've never revealed any loopholes. Is he trying to fool me? At first, Liu Wenxia was extremely curious. Director had painstakingly pulled some strings to enter the military camp in the middle of the night just to see Wang Ting. He couldn't understand why he did this. Although Wang Ting had displayed the abilities of an extreme martial disciple, This was a little overboard. Now, he finally understood Director He's motive. Wang Ting was actually a martial warrior. Liu Wenxia started to doubt his hearing. However, Director He wasn't shooting at random. He was highly likely to have evidence. Director He, you must be kidding. I'm just an extreme martial disciple. How can I be a martial warrior? There was no change in the expression on Wang Teng's face as he smiled and replied. It's all right if you don't want to admit it. Director He smiled nonchalantly. He continued, but I hope that you can become the first in the actual combat assessment tomorrow. I hope that you can perform better and let everyone notice you. Don't worry about it. The university entrance exam is very important to me. I will definitely do my best. Wang Teng was blowing smoke. Try my best. But how can you? What's my best? Haha. Director He didn't say anything. He just took a box out of his pocket. One could tell that he was a little unwilling from his expression, but he still opened it in front of Wang Teng. What is this? There was a bone the size of a palm inside the box. It was entirely blackish green and was glittering and translucent, giving off a metallic luster. It looked extremely beautiful. Star bone, Liu Wenxia exclaimed. That's right, it's a star bone. Director He nodded. The flesh on his face was trembling slightly, heart pain. JPG. What do you think? If you show the power of a martial warrior during the actual combat assessment, this starbone will be yours. Director He said to Wang Ting. Wang Ting took a deep breath. He had heard of the starbone before. It was the part of a star beast's body that contained the most essence. The chances of it appearing was extremely low. Only those exceptionally talented and powerful star beasts living in special environments would give birth to star bones in their bodies. Also, every star beast would only give birth to one star bone normally. These star bones were not huge. They were only the size of a palm, and some were even as small as a crystal bead. The most important thing was, every single star bone contained special abilities. There were many uses of star bones. They could be used to create weapons. In this case, their additional abilities would be attached to the weapons. These weapons were treasures hard to come by. Thus, one could see how rare and precious star bones were. Why was Director He willing to take it out? Why? Wang Teng didn't lose his mind. He stared directly at Director He and asked him. For promotion. Director He smiled slightly. He didn't hide his intention and said straightforwardly, I have been in this position for many years. If I don't find any opportunity, I'll probably stay in this position until I retire. However, heaven treats me quite well. You are my opportunity. I have been in the political world for many years and am not young anymore. I've already lost the determination to progress further in the martial arts path. If this starbone contained defense abilities, I might have used it for myself. Unfortunately, it doesn't. Hence, I plan to use it as a reward to draw people over to my side. I've never found someone worthy of this reward, so it's still with me. But, you're different. You're young and have great potential. You can also help me progress further in my career. The star bone is precious, but in my heart, there are things more important than it. Director He was very direct. He even blatantly exposed his ambition. Wang Ting stared at him for a long time, but he didn't sense anything worth suspecting. That fat face even seemed extremely sincere. This is strange. However, Wang Ting knew that people like them were all sly old foxes. He was still a little hesitant. The starbone was good, but if he exposed his martial warrior ability during such an important occasion, he didn't know what big trouble it might cause. I know what you're worried about. Director He seemed to be able to read his thoughts. He continued calmly, let me advise you as an experienced hand. A martial warrior must fight. A martial warrior is different from a martial disciple. The competition between martial warriors is much more intense than the martial disciples. If one martial warrior wants to climb to the peak, he needs to consume an endless amount of resources, more than you can imagine. There will only be more and more martial warriors, but the resources are limited. Where do these resources come from? Naturally, they are earned and snatched from other people. Even if you don't fight with others, others will fight with you. It's all right if you're ordinary. However, you are outstanding enough and have amazing potential. You will only have even more competitors and stronger opponents. Many geniuses will be fighting with you for resources. Hence, even if you choose to remain low profile and hide your abilities now, not long after, your true capabilities will still be exposed. Others will force you to display your true power, unless you're willing to be a coward and give up the resources in your hands without fighting. You will not be able to hide it forever. Director He's words enlightened Wang Ting's ignorance and left him reeling in shock. A martial warrior must fight. Wang Ting remembered the two martial warriors who had fought each other to death over an egg. He also remembered the other martial warrior who came to find him to snatch his companion's items from him. In the end, he also died. They were all fighting. They were all forcing him to act. Director He's words seemed to make sense. However, he still felt that something was weird. Wang Ting, you disappoint me. You have great potential, but if you don't have the right mentality to complement it, you might not be able to walk far in the future. Director He sighed and revealed a disappointed and regretful expression. Forget it. I won't make it difficult for you. Pretend that I didn't come today. He turned and left. It seemed as though he didn't plan to speak to Wang Ting anymore. Wang Ting looked at him as he walked further and further away. He just continued staring at his back. Cough, Wang Ting, why don't you reconsider? When Wang Ting refused to call him back, Director He cursed in his heart. He had no choice but to turn around and ask in a flattering tone. HMPH, Pinhead. Chapter 74, Island Exam Venue. Director He, you don't have to play tricks with me. I agree that what you say makes sense. However, there's a difference between exposing my true abilities earlier and later. Also, the situation doesn't permit me to do so. All the different factions are present during the university entrance exam. If I reveal my martial warrior identity at a time like this, too many people will know about it. I'll definitely land myself in endless trouble, Wang Ting continued. Director He was disappointed. This fellow was difficult to satisfy. He couldn't convince him at all. Never mind. It looked like he had no affinity with a promotion. Although he could announce this piece of news without his consent, it would definitely cause resentment in Wang Ting's heart. At that time, if Wang Ting turned against him, things would get ugly. He would not only lose his promotion, but he would also leave a bad impression in the hearts of the higher authorities. The loss outweighed the gain. But, at this moment, Wang Ting's attitude took a turn. I accept this deal. Director He's eyes turned wide open. He almost choked on his own saliva. Little brat, were you playing with me just now? You're really bold. He squinted and glared at Wang Ting. Haha, don't mind me. Let's continue with the deal just now. Wang Ting got a fright and laughed awkwardly. Director He took a deep breath and snorted. Then, he said, I mean what I say. As long as you display the strength of a martial warrior and perform glamorously during the actual combat assessment, this starbone will be yours. No problem. Deal. Wang Ting stretched out his hand and wanted to take the starbone away from Director He. However, the latter pulled his hand back and kept the starbone again. You want to take the reward before the result is out. You must be dreaming. Director He pouted. If you don't give it to me now, how will I know whether you will keep your word or not? Wang Ting asked. I'm not someone who will eat my words. Director He glared at him and replied. Who knows? Wang Ting scorned. Director He felt frustrated, but he couldn't vent it anywhere. He took another deep breath and said, why don't we sign an agreement then? Wang Ting was naturally happy to do it. The two signed an agreement and wrote their names on the paper. Then, they left, each having their own thoughts. Liu Wenxia couldn't say anything throughout the entire process. In his heart, he was lamenting how outstanding the youngsters were nowadays. He was not only able to bargain with Director He, but he even made Director He suffer a little loss. Not everyone was able to do that. Also, Wang Ting was actually a martial warrior. When he went back, he must ask Yang Jian to hug this Buddha's leg tightly. Wang Ting returned to the barracks. Yang Jian couldn't control his curiosity and asked, Young Master Wang, why did my uncle look for you? What else can it be? He wants me to perform well and win glory for them, Wang Teng said casually. Oh. All right, hurry up and sleep. We still have to wake up early tomorrow. Tomorrow was the actual combat assessment. Many examinees didn't sleep well that night, as they were extremely agitated and worried. The death index seemed to be hanging above everyone's head like the sword of Damocles. A silent night. The next day, in the early morning, the examinees woke up in the wee hours and finished their breakfast. They gathered in an empty field. A huge unidentified flying object stopped in front of everyone. What is this? It's huge. It looks like an airship. What do you mean it looks like an airship? It is an airship. But, look, there are runes on it. The examinees started discussing among themselves. Liu Wenxia scolded them. All right, keep quiet. Second Lieutenant Luo placed his hand behind his back as he stood in front of the crowd. He waited for them to quieten down before speaking. Not bad, we have only interacted for a short time, but I'm very happy to know all of you. I hope that all of you will be able to pass your actual combat assessment and hope that everyone will come back alive. After he finished, he saluted at the crowd. The examinees couldn't help but straighten their backs and salute back. Let's end it here. Everyone, board the airship. We will be leaving immediately and heading to the venue of the actual combat assessment, Second Lieutenant Luo continued. He turned and walked up the airship first. The student also lined up and followed after him. When they entered the airship, the examinees looked around curiously. This was their first time in this kind of vehicle, so everyone found it exciting. TSK, this should be a force-floating airship. Yang Jian gasped in admiration. Force-floating airship. Wang Teng was puzzled. He had never heard of this before. It's a huge airship with runes drawn in its carrier to activate force as its driving force, Yang Jian explained. Is this different from the force cars and force airplanes? Wang Teng felt even more confused. They are different. I heard that the force airship manufacturing technology is from the Xingwu continent. The internal structure of this airship is vastly different from the current technology we have. I'm not very sure about the details, Yang Jian replied. You spoke for so long, but you're just a dabbler. Wang Teng was speechless. Speaking of this, are there technology products in Xingwu continent? Lin Chuhan joined their conversation. Who knows? Sometimes, pictures from Xingwu continent will circulate around, but there's nothing important. There seem to be restrictions in place. Ordinary people like us won't know what the other world looks like. However, once we become martial warriors, we will have the opportunity to go to Xingwu continent. Yang Jian seemed to be looking forward to it. Why don't you know about this? Wang Ting looked at Lin Chuhan in surprise. Lin Chuhan's father was a martial warrior. She should have some understanding of the other continent. Lin Chuhan understood Wang Ting's meaning. She replied, he never told us anything. Also, at that time, I was very young. After that incident, he wouldn't mention it anymore. Wang Ting nodded. Yang Jian was confused. Fine, what secret do the two of you have? Why didn't you tell me? The floating airship rose into the air. If one looked out from the window, they could see the white clouds floating around the airship. The buildings below were as small as ants now. Despite carrying more than 1,000 examinees, the airship was very stable. There was no turbulence at all. Around half an hour later, the airship trembled a little and started to descend. We have arrived. The examinees hurriedly looked outside. There was actually an island below them. They were in the middle of the sea. The venue for the actual combat assessment is on an island. That's unimaginable. No wonder I've never heard of the location for the actual combat assessment in the past. Look, 2 other airships are descending over there. A sudden voice attracted everyone's attention. Indeed, in the direction the examinee was pointing, 2 airships were flying over from different directions. They were landing on the island too. They must be the students from the other regions in Donghai, someone guessed. The airship landed on the island slowly. The island was quite big, and a wide expanse of land was cleared out for the airship's landing. There was a huge camping ground in front. The examinees got off the airship and sized up their surroundings. The camp ahead took up a large area. The borders were filled with a large number of heavy rune machine guns, an intimidating sight for the youngsters. Their muzzles were facing the forest on the island and the coastline. The primary island was surrounded by rune metal fencing, and sentries manned all the entrances. At the same time, the other 2 airships had landed too. A huge number of examinees surged out. Within a few seconds, the empty area in front of the camping ground was filled with people. Look inside the forest. The moment the shout was heard, the roar of a beast echoed in the forest. Roar in the primary forest, a giant beast roared and charged towards the metal fence. The large number of preys outside had obviously aroused its appetite. Boom. Unfortunately, before it could get close, a loud explosion shook the area. The guards had aimed the cannons at the giant beast and shot it down. The menacing beast was reduced to small pieces of meat. A piece of flesh landed in front of an examinee with a splat. The poor guy was so frightened his face turned pale. I've heard that there are many mutated beasts in the wild. I finally got to see one today. However, these should be ordinary mutated beasts that haven't absorbed force. Their skins are thicker and they are bulkier, but they aren't 4-star beasts. But these mutated beasts are scary too. Are we going to face them during our actual combat assessment? Someone spoke in fear. The scene just now frightened many people. Everyone, welcome to the 3rd exam venue for the Donghai region. This time, your actual combat assessment will be held here. We have prepared the protective battle uniform and weapons for you. When your name is called later, you can come forward to collect your equipment. Of course, some people are more comfortable with using their own weapons and have brought them along. You can use your weapons if you pass the inspection and your weapons meet the requirements. You have 2 hours now. Hurry up and get your equipment. Then, you can start your exam. A man stood on the platform in the camping ground. His voice wasn't loud, but it entered everyone's ears clearly. Chen Xiaoming. Lin Dowei. Zheng Dong. Below the platform, rows and rows of huge cases were lined up. More than 10 staff were distributing the weapons at the side. The students whose names got called went forward quickly to collect their items. There was an area beside it for inspecting the examinees' weapons to see if they met the criteria. Wang Teng walked over and took out his rune weapon carrier casket. He pulled out his weapons one by one. Of course, he didn't bring his rune gun. It went without thinking that weapons like guns were definitely not allowed to be used during the exam. The inspector was slightly shocked when he saw the weapon carrier casket. Young boy, your equipment is not bad. Where did you buy it? Custom made on Daobao, the only one of its kind, Wang Teng replied, a bit proudly. The inspector smiled and didn't probe further. He started inspecting Wang Teng's weapons, which were boxing gloves and battle swords. They are both 1-star rune weapons. No wonder you don't want to use the weapons we're distributing. The inspector glanced at Wang Ting in astonishment. Do they fulfill the requirements? Wang Teng asked. Of course, why won't they? Only martial warriors can unleash the full potential of 1-star rune weapons. In the hands of martial disciples, they are just a bit sharper. Could you be a martial warrior? Asked the inspector. Even if you are a martial warrior and are able to unleash the full power of these 1-star rune weapons, that's your own ability. It's not breaking the rules, another inspector at the side added. Wang Teng nodded. After the inspector confirmed that there was nothing wrong, Wang Teng kept the weapons. He carried his weapon carrier casket and went back to the examinees' queue. So this thing is your weapon. It suddenly occurred to Lin Chuhan. I've already said that this is my secret weapon. Wang Ting smiled and replied. TSK. How is this a secret? Lin Chuhan said with disdain. Lin Chuhan, Wang Ting. At this moment, their names were finally called. They hurriedly went forward to collect their equipment. Wang Ting said to the staff, you can just give me a lighter and more convenient protective battle uniform. I don't need weapons. This set of battle uniforms is lighter and more convenient, but its defensibility is a little weak. The staff found a lighter set of black battle uniforms and passed it to Wang Teng. Wang Teng tried the size and nodded. "I'll take this." An hour later, all the examinees had collected their protective battle uniform, battle boots, and the weapons they needed. The battle uniform and battle boots were all military items. They were made from special materials and were very durable. The battle uniform consisted of long pants and a singlet. The defense ability was good. It was able to withstand the sharp claws of a mutated beast and protect the vital organs in the body. As for the weapons, they were military-grade weapons too. There was a wide array of weapons in all forms of sizes. Although they weren't rune weapons, they were made from high-density high-strength alloys. Tearing the hard skin of a mutated beast wouldn't be a problem. It was worth mentioning that the weapons used by the examinees were all cold weapons. No guns were allowed. At this moment, all the examinees had changed into their battle uniforms and battle boots. They were getting used to the weapons in their hands. The exam hadn't started yet. Everyone was waiting patiently at the waiting area. Chapter 75. Withdraw and Start. Wang Teng and Lin Chuhan prepared themselves at the waiting area. It was easy to tell that Lin Chuhan and Yang Jian were a little absent-minded. They kept fiddling with the weapons in their hands, but there was no pattern to it. When the time came, the two of them had started to get nervous like the rest of the students. Well, they couldn't be blamed either. The angry roar of the mutated beast and the gruesome scene afterward had caused a massive stimulation to the hearts of the examinees. Especially when the mutated beast wanted to charge out from the metal fence. The evil intention in its eyes was obvious. It treated the examinees as its food. There was actually a day when humans were reduced to food. These examinees were like little flowers and young grasses in the ivory towers. They had never experienced any beating from society nor the brutality of the law of the jungle. Although they had long heard of the ruthlessness and scariness of the mutated beast through various channels, they had never felt it so directly. One could only understand how terrifying it was if they experienced it personally. "Are you all right?" Wang Teng couldn't help but ask when he looked at Lin Chuhan's expression. Honestly, it would be a little tough for her to fight with the mutated beast based on her ability. "It's all right." Lin Chuhan gritted her teeth and forced herself to remain calm. "I thought that I could face this actual combat assessment without fear, but now, I feel a little frightened," Yang Jian said with a bitter smile. "It's all right to be scared. Look, who isn't?" Wang Teng pointed to the other people around them. "Even Ju Wu and He Manrong are nervous. I feel much better now." Yang Jian heaved a long sigh of relief when he saw the expression on the faces of the advanced stage martial disciples. "Sigh. But, why do you seem not worried at all? I can wipe out these mutated beasts with one punch. What is there to worry about?" Wang Teng said calmly. "Are you kidding? Those mutated beasts have such thick skins. Although your strength is at 1,000 kilograms, you might not be able to kill one of them in a single punch." Yang Jian obviously didn't believe him. "Do you think that your punch is a cannon?" Lin Chuhan expressed her disdain too. "Why does no one believe me when I'm speaking the truth?" Wang Teng felt speechless. Just like that, the trio chatted casually. After a series of quips and jokes, Lin Chuhan and Yang Jian didn't seem as nervous as before. Everyone, the youngsters' gazes shifted to the high platform when they heard the loud voice. The officer who guided the distribution of the battle uniforms was speaking to the examinees. "The actual combat assessment is about to start. I will be announcing the exam rules now. First, the actual combat assessment will start at 10 a.m. and end at 6 a.m. tomorrow. That means that you will be staying in this primary forest for 1 day and 1 night. When they heard this, the examinees' expressions changed. A day and a night. The primary forest was filled with danger. Yet, they were telling them that they had to stay inside for so long. How were they supposed to stay alive? The officer disregarded the uproar from the examinees below and continued speaking. "During this period, you will have to find your own food, water, and your lodging for the night. At the same time, if you want to pass the exam, you need to kill at least 5 mutated beasts. This is the minimum number. The more mutated beasts you kill and the higher the level of beasts, the higher the number of points you will receive. That way, in the future, you will have better choices. We will be watching over the whole forest using satellite cameras for the entire exam duration. All of you have a communication device on your battle uniform. It is able to track your location to ensure that everyone is under surveillance. The level of the mutated beast you kill, as well as the number of mutated beasts you kill, will all be recorded. It will be changed into points and updated in your data. However, you must kill the beasts personally. Other people can't help you. If not, it will be considered cheating. You will be disqualified from the exam. Also, remember that students are not allowed to cut one another's throats during the actual combat assessment. However, there is still competition between all of you. Not only do you have to guard against mutated beasts, but you also need to be vigilant of other examinees. There's an emergency button on the communication device. We have arranged many experienced martial disciples in the forest. There are even 3 martial warriors. When you press the emergency button, the staff nearest to you will immediately rush to your location based on your GPS. The martial arts exam is important, but your life is even more important. Remember not to act rashly and overexert yourself. That is all I have to say. The examinees didn't look good when they heard the rules. There was a huge commotion. This actual combat assessment was so difficult. It was even more challenging than everyone thought. It was also much more dangerous than they imagined. Many people wanted to throw the towel right away. If you want to give up, you can step forward now, the officer seemed to have seen through their thoughts and said calmly. The examinees exchanged glances with one another. In the end, a lady really took the initiative and stood up first. I want to leave. When she said this sentence, she was already sobbing. It was easy to guess how painful it was for her to make this decision. A martial arts examinee must have worked very hard for the martial arts exam, especially the students from ordinary families. Their families had probably scrimped and saved to provide them with the resources to practice martial arts. But now, she was giving up. Some of the students were shocked, while others felt complicated and understood her feelings. They felt as if they were relieved from a huge burden. Since someone had taken the lead, they felt justified and contented. After some disappointment, pain, and struggle, some students made the same decision and gave up. There was too little hope. At first, they wanted to fight for an ounce of hope. But, if they needed to risk their lives for it, their timid hearts didn't allow them to do it. After a while, the examinees that chose to give up stood sparsely in a corner. There were more than a few hundred people. Does anyone else want to give up? The officer asked. When he noticed that no other examinees came forward, he continued. In that case, the rest of the examinees will be split at random into 10 teams. You will enter the forest from different entrances. Some staff came forward to organize them. The examinees that were familiar with one another were split up into 10 teams. Under the lead of the staff, they headed towards different entrances. Wang Teng stood in the middle of a team. There were unfamiliar faces all around him. Lin Chuhan and Yang Jian were in the other teams, so he couldn't see them anymore. He hoped that they were able to pass the assessment safely. Not long after, Wang Teng's team reached an entrance. After waiting for some time, the person leading their team looked at his watch and said, "It's almost time. You can enter now. Good luck to all of you." He signaled to the guard to open the metal gates. Then, they allowed the examinees to enter. All the students remembered what the officer had said before this. There was competition between the examinees, and they needed to be aware of fellow students. Humans are unpredictable. No one dared to underestimate this sentence. Hence, the second they entered the forest, they parted ways with one another and headed in different directions. Wang Teng chose to enter the depths of the rainforest in a certain direction. He was already wearing his boxing gloves and holding his battle sword in his hand. He did say that this exam was simple for him, but he wasn't stupid. He wouldn't let down his guard. There were tall and lush green trees all around him, and the ground was covered with dried fallen leaves. The stench of decaying leaves, along with the refreshing fragrance of grass and leaves, wafted into his nose. Roar, the roars of beasts rose one after another in the distance. The actual combat assessment start. Chapter 76. Hunt for high-level mutated beasts. The actual combat assessment had been going on for an hour. On the island, in the sealed-off forest, all the examinees were scattered and were hunting and fighting with different mutated beasts. The levels of the mutated beasts corresponded to the martial disciples' levels. They were split into low-level, middle-level, and high-level. The candidates were all intermediate stage and advanced stage martial disciples. The best choice was to kill the weakest low-level mutated beasts. Many people knew that this actual combat assessment wasn't just an exam. In fact, it was a training for the examinee's mentality and outdoor survival ability. After all, if they became martial warriors in the future and headed to Xingwu continent, the environment there was much worse than this forest. In the future, they might not have such a good chance to find a mutated beast to train themselves. At that time, they would be facing terrifying star beasts. Currently, Wang Teng was squatting on a huge tree and staring at a giant forest lizard below him. This was the first mutated beast he had met. And, it was a high-level mutated beast. He didn't know if he was lucky or not. He had hung around for an hour but didn't meet any mutated beast. The moment he met one, it was a high-level mutated beast. This beast had mutated from a forest giant lizard. Its body was covered with thick and heavy scales, giving off a metallic glimmer. Its claws were as sharp as knives, and its fangs looked like spikes. They were able to pierce through a person in an instant. At first, Wang Teng thought that it hadn't noticed him yet. He was planning to sneak an attack on it. Nonetheless, this was the first time he met a mutated beast. Hence, he didn't act rashly. Out of his expectations, the forest giant lizard swung its tail at him. The huge force cut the tree he was using to hide into two. Boom! The tree cracked and fell. F***K, it's so strong. Wang Ting hurriedly stepped on the ground and leaped into the air. Then, he waved his battle sword and exerted strength all over his body. He struck his sword down at the giant forest lizard. Roar! The giant lizard opened its mouth and let out a growl. It swung its tail again and swept it towards him. This tail sweep was extremely powerful. Even the air around it gave off short exploding sounds. Wang Ting's eyebrows jumped slightly. Naturally, he wasn't stupid, he wouldn't receive the attack forcefully. He executed his presence enlightenment stage basic footwork and actually managed to turn his body in the air. The maneuver allowed him to evade the attack easily. Wang Ting instantly lowered his center of gravity and landed on the ground. He punched the side of the giant lizard with his fist. Bang! His strength was terrifying. This punch caused the scale armor of the giant lizard to crack open, even hurting the bones underneath. Howl! The giant lizard howled in pain. It opened its mouth and wanted to pounce on Wang Teng. The stinging stench of blood flowed right into Wang Teng's face. Wang Teng snorted. His speed accelerated, and he evaded the giant lizard's attack. Next, he raised the battle sword in his hand and charged forward. Crack! Fresh blood spurted out. His sword slashed right through the giant lizard's mouth. It cut off a huge portion of the lizard's head. The next moment, the giant lizard fell to the ground with a thud. It was dead. Sigh. Wang Ting let out a breath. High-level mutated beasts were harder to deal with than he had imagined. However, it was still a piece of cake for him. He walked towards the giant lizard to take a look. Strength *20 blank attribute *5 Wang Ting instantly felt thrilled. Blank attribute. He saw blank attributes again. After Wang Teng picked them up, he didn't use them in a hurry. Instead, he kept them first. Wang Ting looked at the corpse of the giant lizard and went into deep thought. Is there a higher probability of dropping blank attributes if I kill mutated beasts and star beasts? He couldn't help but remember the giant crow star beast that was killed the other time. That star beast had dropped 60 blank attributes. In contrast, this giant lizard had dropped only 5 points. He had picked up blank attributes from martial disciples in the past before, but the probability was really low. Also, it wasn't a lot. Sigh, Can't the system explain the settings all at once? Why do I have to figure it out myself? Wang Teng sighed helplessly. He decided to try it on a few more mutated beasts. If his guess was correct, this exam venue for their actual combat assessment would become an excellent place to collect blank attribute. An evil smile immediately appeared on his face. Almost simultaneously, all the mutated beasts in the entire forest felt an evil intention engulfing them. Report. An examinee has already killed a high-level mutated beast. At the same time, in a huge central control room situated in the island camping ground, computer screens filled up the entire place. All the screens were showing the images of the examinees in the forest. A few hundred staff stared at the screens without blinking. Suddenly, a staff member shouted loudly. The leaders from the Ministry of Education, including Director He, as well as the higher authorities from the top 3 martial arts academies and the president of the Martial Arts Association, Qin Hanxian, were all gathered in this room. At first, they were chatting casually. When they heard this shout, though, they immediately turned in that direction. The staff member clicked on his computer and sent the image on his screen to the wall so that everyone could see it clearly. He even replayed the scene just now. Haha, indeed, it's that person. Director He couldn't help but laugh when he saw the young man standing in front of the giant lizard on the screen. Director He, do you know this guy? The principal of the Donghai branch Leitang Martial House, Jiang Hong, asked. This young man is not bad. His battle awareness is really strong. The principal of the Donghai branch Balian Martial House, Jiyu Hefi, complimented Wang Teng. This examinee is the only extreme martial disciple from our Donghai this year. Director He smiled. He secretly glanced at the valiant-looking man sitting properly at the host's seat. Qin Hanxian and Fu Tiandao exchanged glances with each other. They didn't speak. The valiant-looking man calmly glanced at the screen. He didn't express too many emotions. However, when he heard that this was an extreme martial disciple, he raised his eyebrows slightly. Extreme martial disciple. Not bad, let's continue watching, the man said in a composed manner. Director He was elated. This sentence was enough to prove that Governor Jiang had developed an interest in Wang Ting. This man was the Governor-General of Donghai. The last time, Qin Hanxian and Fu Tiandao had said that he was on the brink of his breakthrough. Now, he had appeared at the martial arts exam. No one else said anything. After all, the exam had just started. However, they couldn't help but pay more attention to Wang Ting. Time passed slowly. Gruesome battles were happening in many different corners of the forest. These examinees didn't have an easy time like Wang Ting. After all, this was their first time facing a mutated beast. Some people couldn't even release 1/5 of their true power. For an intermediate stage martial disciple to kill a low-level mutated beast, he needed to use a lot of strength and brain. In theory, they knew that they had to target the weak spots, but in an actual battle, everything was thrown to the back of their minds. Some people even cowered right at the start. Before they started fighting, they had already run away in a flurry. Within 2 to 3 hours, close to half of the examinees were eliminated. 3 p.m. On an empty area in the forest, 2 black figures were engaged in a fight. After a cold flash of light, the 2 figures separated from each other. Wang Teng landed on the ground stably. The battle sword in his hand was pointing diagonally at the ground. A trace of blood dripped down the tip of the sword and landed on the leaves-covered earth. The other black figure slammed hard on the ground. Its head flew up high before falling back. A large amount of blood spurted out like a fountain. They are both high-level mutated beasts, but this green python was harder to deal with than that forest giant lizard. Wang Teng lamented to himself. Then, he went forward. Speed *15 blank attribute *6 as expected, blank attributes were dropped again. Wang Teng was cheering secretly in his heart. He picked them up. The instant he finished picking up the attribute bubbles, the python head at the side suddenly leaped up and opened its mouth wide, baring its fangs. It wanted to bite Wang Teng. "I've been waiting for you," Wang Teng sneered. He slashed his battle sword sideways and cut the python head into 2. In the 5 years of martial arts exam, 3 years of mock papers, It was mentioned that mutated snakes had a strong vitality. Even if their heads were chopped off, their central nervous systems would still be functioning for a short period. It would produce certain instinctive reactions. If one wasn't careful enough, they might be attacked by it when it was at the brink of death. It didn't mean that the larger mutated beasts were poisonous. If a mutated beast was poisonous before it mutated, not only would its size grow bigger, its poison would become even more deadly. If a person was bitten by it, he might die on the spot. Hence, they needed to be extremely careful. Wang Ting turned around and prepared to leave. Suddenly, the sound of something cutting through the air was heard behind him. Swoosh. The sound was shrill and loud, and one could guess how fast the speed was from the wind. A stinging pain was felt on his leg. Wang Teng reacted almost instantly. His speed increased exponentially, and he executed his footwork with full power. His body moved away slightly from his original position. Boom! A sharp arrow cut through the air beside his leg. It pierced into a huge tree and formed a large hole in it. Examinees weren't allowed to endanger each other's lives, but they were able to defeat one another. That way, the mutated beasts that the other party killed would be counted as the winners. Just now, that arrow wasn't aimed at Wang Ting's vital point. Still, if it had hit his thigh, his battle ability would have decreased greatly. Wang Teng looked at the examinee on the tree far away who had released this arrow. He immediately dashed into the bushes and executed his footwork. The snake walk. The other party wasn't able to get a lock on him. Then, Wang Teng moved in the direction where his opponent was at. F***K. Are you looking for death? Chapter 77. Your father is ultimately your father. The expression of the examinee, who had tried to sneak an attack on Wang Teng, underwent a change when he noticed how fast Wang Teng's reaction and how decisive he was. The moment he evaded his attack, Wang Teng snuck into the bushes and ran towards him using the bushes as his cover. Retreat. The examinee turned and ran away without any hesitation. The basic battle technique he practiced was basic arrow skill. It was suitable for long-range attacks and not close combats. Just now, when he saw the way Wang Ting fought with the high-level mutated beast, he knew that he would lose if he got caught by the young man. Wang Ting shuttled back and forth in the forest. He executed his footwork, and his figure kept shifting like the clouds. The other party wasn't able to aim at him. How dare you sneak an attack on me? Do you think him easy to bully? Wang Teng's expression was cold as he increased his speed with every step. He dashed towards the other examinee. Damn it! The other examinee got a fright when he saw Wang Ting rushing over. How could he be so fast? The distance between the two of them got closer and closer. As the guy ran away, he continued shooting arrows behind him. He hoped that he would be able to stall Wang Ting for some time, even if it was just to lower his speed of chasing him. However, even though the arrows he shot caused some obstruction to Wang Teng, the distance between the two of them didn't get longer. It continued shortening. Wang Teng's speed was much faster than his, and his arrows were almost finished. After a few seconds, the distance between the two of them was less than 30 meters. Die. Wang Ting stepped on the ground, and the earth below him cracked. His entire body shot out like a raging bear. His sword formed an arc in the air as he flung it down on the examinee. The examinee was flabbergasted. He raised his bow above his head to block this attack. Clang! When the bow and the sword collided, a metallic tremble rang out. The examinee's expression changed. He could feel a powerful force boring down on him. He couldn't control himself and flew backward. Bang! He slammed heavily on the ground. Fresh blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. He shouted towards the forest beside him, "Why aren't you all moving? How long are you going to watch the show?" Wang Teng scoffed. He furiously charged at the examinee. "Don't come over." The other party's expression changed for the umpteenth time. He quickly crawled up from the ground and retreated. Wang Teng punched him without saying anything. "Stop!" A loud shout suddenly came from the forest behind him. A strong gust of wind assaulted Wang Teng's back. Wang Teng evaded the attack as though he had eyes on his back. His hard and sturdy iron fist still smashed into the examinee's face. Crack. The other party's nose bridge collapsed. It was quite obvious. Blood splattered everywhere from his nose, and the guy kept screaming in pain. Wang Ting swept his legs this time. The examinee was already dizzy from the punch. Now, his vision turned black, and he wasn't able to withstand the attack at all. In an instant, he flew away because of the kick. Basic arrow skill *10 beginner stage arrow talent *3 her? Wang Ting's eyes lit up. There are talent attributes. The attributes this examinee dropped were quite impressive. He picked them up. The two examinees that had just walked out of the forest didn't protect their companion when they saw what happened. Instead, they watched Wang Ting injure him without doing anything. Their expressions turned ugly. Wang Ting, you're too ruthless. We are all examinees. How can you land such a heavy blow? One of the examinees pointed at Wang Ting and shouted. I was wondering who it was. So, it's you, young Master Li. Wang Ting turned around and looked at the people who had just appeared. One of them was a complete stranger to him. He didn't recognize the man. However, the other was an old friend, Li Rongcheng. Why? Are you planning to get some of your egos back because you were tortured by me too many times? Wang Ting smiled at him ambiguously. Where did you get these two dumb boys? How did you trick them into seeking death together with you? Li Rongcheng's expression turned even worse when Wang Ting exposed his true thoughts. A hint of anxiousness flashed past his eyes. Indeed, he was the one who found these two people. Wang Ting had opposed him many times and caused him to lose his face. Also, he already knew he was beaten up for no reason at that time because of Wang Ting's framing. He was the one who caused him to carry that blame. This bastard was so sinister. Also, during the level inspection, Wang Ting displayed the ability of an extreme martial disciple. He had amazed the crowd with a single feat and made him exceptionally jealous. Thus, he tricked these two advanced stage martial disciples from other schools and planned to kick Wang Ting out of the actual combat assessment. Of course, Li Rongcheng was able to convince these two advanced stage martial disciples because he knew them before. He also promised them certain benefits. Unfortunately, a boss was still a boss. Your father was still your father. The examinee who tried to sneak attack Wang Ting didn't succeed. Instead, he was beaten up like a dog. He laid on the floor, not able to get up anymore. These guys were already frightened of Wang Teng's ability. Now, with one person down, only Li Rongcheng and the other advanced stage youngster were left. Their chances of winning were even less. When he heard Wang Teng's words, the other advanced stage martial disciple glanced at Li Rongcheng. That gaze caused Li Rongcheng's heart to drop. Since it has already reached this state, there's no point in saying anything anymore. Let's just fight. Surprisingly, the advanced stage martial disciple was extremely decisive. He knew Li Rongcheng's intention, but they had already formed a grudge with Wang Teng. Hence, there was probably no point in begging for mercy. They should just work together and get rid of Wang Teng. All right. Li Rongcheng gritted his teeth and didn't say much. He held his battle blade in his hand and charged towards Wang Teng first. The seed of suspicion was already planted in them. However, they had no choice but to work together now. He must show enough sincerity. As expected, when the advanced stage martial disciple saw him attacking first, his vigilant expression softened a little. Then, he joined the assault on Wang Teng. He held a huge and heavy battle mace in his hand. As he waved it around, the sound of air breaking could be heard. He smashed it viciously at Wang Teng. Li Rongcheng executed his presence enlightenment stage basic blade skill. His blade moved as fast as lightning and covered Wang Teng up entirely. The attack of two advanced stage martial disciples was troublesome and tough to handle, even for an extreme martial disciple. However, Wang Teng's true ability wasn't that of an extreme martial disciple. He was a martial warrior. Not only that, all his battle techniques were at a higher stage than the other two martial disciples. Even if he didn't release his martial warrior ability, he was still able to beat the two people up. He executed his presence enlightenment stage basic footwork to its fullest potential. His body spun and turned in the smallest area possible. It was as if he wasn't moving at all. However, Li Rongcheng's blade couldn't even touch the edge of his clothes. Presence Enlightenment stage footwork. Li Rongcheng was stunned. At this time, the other advanced stage martial disciple's metal mace had arrived in front of him. A cold smile appeared at the corner of Wang Ting's lips. He pushed his fists out and took the attack of the mace head-on. Wang Ting was wearing boxing gloves, so his hands weren't injured at all. On the other hand, his opponent took a few steps back. His hands that were holding the mace kept trembling. The battle mace almost slipped out of his hands. Wang Ting continued his victorious pursuit and appeared in front of Li Rongcheng in a blink of an eye. Under his astounded gaze, he pushed his fists out. Li Rongcheng wanted to dodge, but he realized that his body couldn't catch up with his thoughts. He was defeated in one move. Why? Why is it the same as before? His heart was filled with unwillingness. He remembered the previous duel they had in the school stadium. An intense bitterness overflowed him. When that advanced stage martial disciple saw that Li Rongcheng couldn't even handle a single attack from Wang Teng, his pupils constricted. He gritted his teeth and forcefully controlled his trembling hands. Just when he was about to raise his battle mace, a pair of iron fists welcomed him. Boom! The fists landed on his chest, and the overwhelming force threw him back. How is this possible? In the instant he flew out, an inconceivable thought appeared in his heart. Chapter 78. Wang Ting, I suggest you leave some room for yourself. The examinee that got flung back by Wang Ting's punch was a strength-type advanced stage martial disciple. But, at this moment, even he was amazed by Wang Ting's strength. A moment ago, Wang Ting had received the attack of his battle mace forcefully with his fists. This time, when Wang Ting punched him, he was unable to retaliate at all. Was this the ability of an extreme martial disciple? The difference was too huge. At first, he was very decisive and felt that since they had already formed a grudge, they should just kick Wang Ting out of the martial arts exam. However, now, he regretted his decision. At the same time, he hated Li Rongcheng terribly. This bastard. How did he provoke such a powerful figure? He wasn't the only one. At this moment, Li Rongcheng also felt puzzled. The last time, he was defeated in a single blow. Now, the same thing had repeated itself. However, he felt that Wang Ting's ability had gotten stronger. His chest was hurting so much. The gap was getting bigger and bigger. How was he supposed to fight with Wang Ting? Wang Ting glanced at the duo. There were a few attribute bubbles dropped around them. Speed *5 strength *12 basic mace skill *5 Wang Ting shook his head. These were all very ordinary. As for the basic mace skill, well, he tried to imagine himself waving the huge mace around. Forget it. This weapon wasn't suitable for him. Wang Ting was too lazy to pick up the attributes. Am I getting arrogant, or are they too weak? They must be too weak. Wang Ting questioned himself for a second. His gaze then landed on the examinee who had dropped the beginner stage arrow skill talent unconsciously. This was the first time someone dropped a weapon-type talent. This fellow must have some ability. Wickedness slowly filled up his gaze. On the other side, although the examinee was unconscious, he suddenly shivered. Wang Ting walked over and hit the examinee without waking him up. He especially took care of his head and hit it a few times. Spirit *0. 2 beginner stage arrow talent *1 basic arrow skill *2 basic arrow skill *1 beginner stage arrow talent *1 spirit *0. Wang Ting only left the guy alone when the attribute bubbles stopped dropping. The examinee woke up from the pain. He felt as though he had a dream. In his dream, someone tortured and tormented him terribly. He was really pitiful. But, the moment he woke up, he felt pain all over his body. He couldn't help but groan in agony. Li Rongcheng and the other examinee had witnessed this brutal act firsthand. The muscles on their faces twitched uncontrollably, and a chill crept up to their hearts. Oh my God, he must be a devil. He doesn't even let go of an unconscious guy. How can he bear to be so cruel? Scary. If they weren't heavily injured, They would have run away like their lives depended on it. Wang Teng suddenly turned his head and glanced at the two examinees. They shuddered in fright, and their expressions warped. Especially when they saw him walking towards them, a sense of uneasiness rose from the depth of their hearts. This devil. Wang Teng, what do you want to do? Wang Teng didn't say anything. We have already lost. What else do you want to do? Stop when you should. Don't be too outrageous. When he heard Wang Ting laughing in disdain, Li Rongcheng's face turned green. He looked at Wang Ting as he stood right in front of him and shouted in panic, Wang Ting, don't cut off all your routes of retreat. I suggest you leave some room for yourself. Wang Ting clicked his tongue. He didn't expect Li Rongcheng to be so good at talking. The guy sure had a glib tongue. He raised his big fist and aimed it at Li Rongcheng's head. One punch and Li Rongcheng's vision turned black. Spirit *0. 50. Not bad. Continue. Bang, bang, bang. Spirit *0. 1 spirit *0. 1. Unfortunately, after dropping 2 more spirit attributes, he stopped. Li Rongcheng grabbed the opportunity during the interval and hurriedly pressed the emergency button. He would give up the assessment. He didn't want to make this decision, but if he remained here any longer, he might be beaten half to death. This devil. Wang Teng wanted to turn to the other examinee, but he realized that the examinee had already pressed the emergency button a long time ago. Now, hurried footsteps were heard not far away from them. The examinee, who had sneak attacked Wang Teng, finally understood what had happened. He pressed the emergency button too. The 3 of them were forced to give up. Wang Teng shook his head and ignored them. He turned around and left. When the staff of the exam venue arrived and saw the sad plight of the 3 students, they were stunned. What happened here? This fellow is a little vicious. In the central control room, everyone looked at the scene on the screen with trembling eyelids. Did you notice that his basic footwork has reached the presence enlightenment stage? The principal of Balian Martial House, Jiu Hefi, suddenly asked. You're right. This Wang Teng is a genius. The principal of Leitang Martial House, Jiang Hong, nodded. Our Balian Martial House wants this examinee. No one is going to snatch him from me, Jiu Hefi said. Temph, we haven't even opened our mouth. Why are you in such a hurry? Jiang Hong complained. Ha ha ha, there's no need to fight. Wang Teng is already a member of our Jisin Martial House. Fu Tiandao couldn't help but laugh happily. You. Jiu Hefi and Jiang Hong felt disappointed. At the same time, they glared furiously at Fu Tiandao. They had finally managed to find such a good seedling, but he already belonged to Jisin Martial House. Time passed by. The massacre in the forest became more and more intense. Many examinees got injured during their first fight with the mutated beasts. Those suffering severe injuries pressed the emergency button and left the exam helplessly. Those that only had light injuries gritted their teeth and persevered. They had experienced a fight already, so they were gradually getting used to it. For many of the candidates, this was their first time facing the mutated beasts. They were strong enough, so even though they felt a little uncomfortable killing mutated beasts, they started to familiarize themselves with the sensation after killing a few of them. Most people chose low-level mutated beasts as their first prey. After getting used to the situation, they would look for middle-level and high-level mutated beasts. Especially those advanced-stage martial disciples. These students wanted to enter top universities, so they needed to achieve good results. That was the only way to get the attention of the top universities. Night dawned on the forest. After the fights in the day, most of the students were exhausted and hungry. However, they needed to find their own food and water to fill up their stomachs. They also needed to find a place to rest for the night. At night, the forest was even more dangerous. All kinds of mutated beasts came out to search for prey. The number of mutated beasts seemed to have increased suddenly. Wang Ting stood on a huge tree and looked into the distance. The shadows of many mutated beasts could be seen in the dense forest. He wasn't the only one who noticed the anomaly. Other examinees had observed this point too. That's good. I can get more blank attributes. Wang Teng smiled slightly. In the day, he had already killed 6 high-level mutated beasts. He had also finished off 9 middle-level mutated beasts, collecting a total of 43 blank attributes. Let's find some food first. Just as this thought appeared in his mind, a wild mutated boar suddenly appeared in his vision. Well, it looks edible. Wang Ting jumped down, and the glint from his sword formed an arc in the air. Swoosh, blood splattered, and this wild boar with thick skin was directly beheaded. In the beginning, Wang Ting had purposely suppressed his ability because he wanted to train with mutated beasts. But, in the end, he changed his opinion. What was more important than collecting attributes? Thus, he decided to let himself go and kill as many mutated beasts as he could. With his ability, this middle-level mutated beast would be finished off in one blow. Wang Ting chopped off a large piece of thigh meat and held it in his hand. He then found a mountain cave and drilled wood to make fire. In the 5 years of martial arts exam, 3 years of mock papers, this was basic knowledge. He twirled the wood twice, and a small flame appeared. Wang Ting barbecued the wild boar thigh and filled up his stomach. After resting for some time, he walked out of the cave and continued his hunt for mutated beasts. This was a sleepless night. It was already midnight. In the central control room, the hunting result of the examinees was projected on the wall through the projector. All the leaders were looking at the results silently. Yang Peng from Huiying High School has already killed 13 mutated beasts. 3 high-level ones, 4 middle-level ones, and 6 low-level beasts. This result is really good, Jiyu Hefi said. Ju Wu from number 1 High School isn't bad either. He has also killed 13 mutated beasts, 3 high-level, 3 middle-level, and 7 low-level. He's just 1 step behind, Jiang Hong said. There's also Dong Fei from Shiyang High School. He killed 14 mutated beasts, 4 high-level, 5 middle-level, and 5 low-level. The bosses mentioned all the outstanding students from the different schools, but most of their attention was placed on the number 1 examinee, Wang Ting. They would glance at his results occasionally. It rose again. The same thought appeared in the leaders' minds almost simultaneously. He had killed a total of 28 mutated beasts. Wait, it was 29 mutated beasts now. Another high-level mutated beast had lost its life under his sword. Among them, 18 were high-level mutated beasts. There were even lesser middle-level beasts, only 10. The leaders didn't know how to describe Wang Teng anymore. It seemed so easy for him to kill the mutated beasts. Most of the time, he would finish them with a single wave of his sword. The most he would do was to add another punch. Of course, they had forgotten about the 2 mutated beasts Wang Ting killed right at the start. Based on the ability he displayed afterward, he must be fooling around back then. When we were young, were we able to do this? All the leaders started asking themselves. The answer was a resounding no. If they really were to fight with the mutated beasts, they might be tormented like crazy. Even Governor Jiang felt the corners of his eyes twitching. The potential this fellow displayed was almost on par with the top figures in society. But it was just his potential. Growth had its consequences. It was impossible to predict what would happen in the future. Another 2 hours passed. The forest was dark and silent. Occasionally, the roar of a wild animal would shatter the peaceful illusion. No one knew what that was. Although this environment was daunting and taking a toll on their bodies, the examinees gritted their teeth and persevered. Some examinees had already killed 5 mutated beasts, so they were qualified for the martial arts course. To be safe, they hid in a secluded spot and stopped going out. On the other hand, Wang Teng continued hunting. He was having one hell of a time in this exam. He had already collated 85 blank attributes. It was a huge gain. Currently, multiple agile black figures were surrounding him. They appeared from all different directions. The furs of these mutated beasts were grayish-black. They were able to hide very well under the night sky. Their eyes gave off an eerie green glow, and a low groan could be heard from their mouths. A disgusting stench wafted into his nose. Wang Teng's figure shuttled around like a butterfly dancing among the flowers. This bunch of jackals and wolves kept missing him. Every time his sword slashed through the air, a life would be lost. After a few minutes, the ground was filled with the corpses of jackals and wolves. Only a few beasts had survived this nightmare. The bedraggled survivors ran away in a flurry. Wang Ting was too lazy to chase after them, though. He collected another 8 middle-level mutated beast. Blank attribute plus 16. Wang Ting was about to turn and leave when suddenly, the ground started shaking violently. Small cracks began appearing on the ground. Chapter 79, Volcano Eruption. The ground was quaking, and many thin cracks were starting to appear. The entire mountain below his feet seemed to be vibrating. What is happening? Wang Ting's expression changed. He glanced around him and noticed that the trees were all shaking too. The leaves rustled and fell. The other examinees felt the vibration too. Those further away didn't feel the shaking as much, so they continued hunting for mutated beasts after a moment of astonishment. However, the examinees in the same mountain as Wang Ting felt the vibration vividly. Their expressions underwent a slight change. The examinees hesitated and wondered if they should leave immediately. However, there were many mutated beasts on this mountain. Those examinees that wanted to achieve good results found it difficult to give up. Also, there were many safe spots on this mountain. The examinees who had hidden inside after meeting the minimum requirements walked out in a daze. They didn't know what was happening. A few minutes later, the quaking stopped. It seemed as though it had never appeared. In the central control room, Governor Jiang sat in the host's seat and asked calmly, "What happened just now?" "There's an extinct volcano on this island. Some strange movements might have occurred inside the volcano," the staff below reported in a hurry. "Extinct volcano?" Governor Jiang looked at him. The staff felt cold sweat pouring down his forehead as the governor stared at him. "Go and investigate immediately. The safety of the examinees is crucial," Governor Jiang said. Yes. I will arrange someone to investigate it at once," the staff trembled in fear and replied. The assessment continued. Boom. Another huge earthquake. This time, it was even more severe. Roar. Howl. Suddenly, the mutated beasts in the mountains roared and howled. You could almost sense the fear in their voices. Many examinees were fighting with mutated beasts. They exchanged blows with the beasts and were having a ball of a time. When the ground vibrated, the examinees were stunned on the spot. The mutated beasts, though, had already fled in a hurry. They weren't escaping up the mountains. Instead, they were furiously dashing down. Boom. The examinees soon realized that it wasn't just one or two beasts escaping. All the mutated beasts were running away from the mountain. The scene was appalling. The peak of the mountain swayed, and the ground vibrated occasionally. In this second, all the examinees finally realized that something frightening was happening. Is this an earthquake? Many examinees took a wild guess. In the central control room, Governor Jiang stood up with a stern expression. End the actual combat assessment. The people below carried out the order without any delays. The siren blared around the island. The ear-shattering sound of the broadcast system spread through the entire primary forest. All examinees, a strange activity is detected in the extinct volcano at the exam venue. The actual combat assessment will end early. Please hurry towards the nearest exit at the fastest speed and leave the exam venue. Repeat, all examinees. The announcement kept repeating to ensure that all the examinees heard it. Extinct volcano. Damn it, why didn't they mention it earlier? The expressions of the examinees who heard the broadcast changed slightly. They sprinted towards the entrance of the forest at their maximum speeds. Wang Teng's expression wasn't any different from the rest. He turned and charged down the mountain without any hesitation. However, he was deep inside the forest, so there was a huge distance between him and the bottom of the mountain. The mutated beasts in the mountain had gone entirely crazy. They surged down the mountain in many different waves. The examinees that couldn't retreat in time could only make way for the beasts. However, that meant that they would be stuck in the mountain. Some examinees decided to take the risk. They wanted to make use of the chaos to get down the mountain since the mutated beasts wouldn't bother about them now. Their thoughts were good, but the reality was cruel. The frantic mutated beasts attacked anyone and anything without any difference. Anything that was in their way, whether it was trees, other beasts, or humans, they would smash them away. One examinee got hit by a mutated beast and fell to the ground. Instantly, he was stamped into a pile of minced meat. He didn't even have the time to scream. The examinees that saw this scene shuddered in fright. They didn't dare to act rashly anymore. However, this was a picture in one corner of the exam venue. At the moment, tragedies were happening in all corners of the mountain. The number of deaths this year was increasing exponentially. The staff in the exam venue were helpless in the face of this situation. They wanted to help, but there was nothing they could do in front of the waves of mutated beasts. Everyone, it's up to us now. Governor Jiang's voice was emotionless as he walked out of the central control room in large strides. His legs weren't touching the ground. Gotta stretch our legs once in a while. The other leaders quickly answered. They walked out of the central control room and leaped out of the camp. Turning into black figures, the bigwigs disappeared into the night sky. At this moment, Wang Ting was standing on the crown of a huge tree. He was looking at the peak of the mountain in the far distance. Spiritual sight. He saw fire force raging at the peak of the mountain. Balls of red lights were spurting out of the crater. Is it going to erupt? Or did something else happen? Wang Ting silently wondered to himself. He looked down at the frantic mutated beasts and frowned uncontrollably. I wonder how Lin Chuhan is. Who are they? Suddenly, he saw three figures engulfed entirely in three different color rays. They were actually dashing up the mountain. Three martial warriors. Under his spiritual sight, he could see their elements clearly. Yellow, green, and blue, they were earth element, wood element, and water element. The color of the water element was different from the ice element. The ice element was dark blue, while the water element was light blue. These three must be the martial warriors protecting the examinees. Are they planning to go up the mountain to understand the situation? Wang Ting pondered for a moment and guessed their intention. The three martial warriors charged into the beast's tide as though there was no resistance. They forcefully cleared a bloody trail. Strength *3 speed *2 blank attribute *1 blank attribute *3 speed *2 blank attribute *1 many attribute bubbles were dropped amidst the beast tide. Wang Ting thought for a moment. Why don't I pick them up? Hence, he secretly followed the three martial warriors and picked up the attributes dropped along the way. Impressive, impressive. The destructive ability of three martial warriors is indeed amazing. Wang Ting made a comparison silently. He realized that if he were to fight against these three, the chances of winning were minimal. The three martial warriors fought all the way up to the peak of the mountain. Wang Ting followed them behind. When he saw the three martial warriors jumping into the crater, he hesitated. Should he go down with them? What if the volcano suddenly erupted? Forget it. My life is more important. Wang Ting contemplated for a moment and felt the value of his life. He turned and planned to go down the mountain. Suddenly, he felt something under his feet. An examination identity card. He picked it up. Instantly, he cursed uncontrollably, F***K. At that moment, Wang Ting's expression turned extremely ugly. Lin Chuhan. Why is her examination identity card here? Wang Ting's gaze landed on the crater unconsciously. Suddenly, he had a bad feeling. Could she be so unlucky? Maybe she just dropped it in a moment of panic. She might have already escaped the mountain. He consoled himself and forced himself to hurry down the mountain. He took 2 steps before gritting his teeth. F***K, why did you run all the way here? Aren't you creating trouble for me? Wang Ting felt a headache coming on. He leaped up and jumped down the crater. Chapter 80. Volcano Salamander. Wang Ting landed on a protruding rock on the rock wall. He scanned the environment inside the crater. Indeed, this looked like an extinct volcano. The walls around him had been eroded by the wind and were fragmented. But this was what gave him a place to land. Where are they? There was no one in sight. He frowned. Wang Ting could only continue going down. There were many broken layers and blind spots below, so it was tough to see. The 3 martial warriors that went down a moment ago were nowhere in sight. There must be something underneath. Crack. Suddenly, the protruding rock that Wang Ting was stepping on cracked without any warning. His entire center of gravity dropped, and his body fell uncontrollably. Wang Ting stepped on a falling piece of rock in midair. Boom. The rock exploded into fragments. Wang Ting used the recoil to leap onto the nearest rock. Breathe. Just as he heaved a sigh of relief, his pupils suddenly constricted. There's a cave. On the right side of the place he landed on, he could see a concealed long and narrow entrance of a cave. He wanted to go over, but he stopped abruptly. Spiritual sight. He executed his talent and saw huge amounts of fire force seeping out from the cave. Wang Ting scanned his surroundings again and noticed that this was the source of the force he saw spurting out of the crater. As expected, there's something wrong with this place. He pondered for a moment before putting his feet forward. He sneaked into the cave. The cave was narrow and long, barely wide enough for one person to walk. Wang Ting moved forward carefully. The vigilance in his heart kept rising. With the help of his spiritual sight, he could see the fire force getting thicker as he walked deeper into the cave. The situation inside must be tricky to handle. Once he entered the cave, he noticed that the temperature was much higher than outside. As he got deeper, the temperature kept rising. A strange sound suddenly came from the depth of the cave. What sound is that? Wang Ting stopped in his tracks. He hesitated for a second before hastening his pace and rushing towards the depth of the cave. The sound had probably come from some unknown mutated beast. Considering the density of the fire force in this area, it might even be a star beast. With Lin Chuhan's ability, if she was inside, the odds were stacked like a mountain against her. What is wrong with the exam board? Why is an accident like this happening during the martial arts exam? They are so unreliable. Not long after, a light appeared in front of Wang Ting. He had reached the end of the tunnel. A red light shone in. The scorching heat overwhelmed him. As he got nearer, he felt the temperature rising exponentially. Wang Ting secretly moved the ice force around his body. That was the only way to prevent him from feeling like he was in a furnace. Wang Ting tilted his body and stood at the edge of the entrance. He allowed the protruding rock wall to block his body. Then, he peeked inside. There was a massive space inside the cave. In the middle, there was a pit where magma could be seen flowing below. This was the source of the scorching heat. As for the 3 martial warriors that entered before him, they were fighting with 2 star beasts. Star beasts. They must be star beast. They had force in their bodies. The 2 star beasts looked a little like salamanders. However, they were enormous, and their entire body was red. They had scale armors covering them, with long horns decorating their heads. They kept giving off sounds that sounded like babies crying. It's a star beast. Wang Ting was dumbstruck. Didn't they say that there were only mutated beasts here? Where did star beasts come from? He hurriedly searched for Lin Chuhan's figure. Lin Chuhan would be helpless in front of these 2 star beasts. It was the same as serving herself to them on a platter. These 2 beasts might not even feel full after eating her. However, after searching for 1 round, he didn't discover any signs of her. Was she eaten? Or was she eaten? Or was she eaten? Or maybe she never came in. Wang Ting was extremely anxious as the same thought kept looping in his mind. At this moment, the fight between the 2 star beasts and the martial warriors intensified. Boom! The star beast blew force out of its mouth and formed a round magma ball. The ball flew towards the wood element martial warrior at high speed. Honestly, this wood element martial warrior was restrained by the fire element star beast. He was exhausted during the battle just now, so when the star beast released a powerful move, he was taken by surprise. Move! The earth element martial warrior at the side shouted. The wood martial warrior was guarding against the force attacks from the star beasts too. He was a little flustered, but he managed to evade the attack precariously. The ball of magma slammed into the rock wall behind him. Its destructive ability was astonishing, as evident from the collapsed rock wall. A huge piece of rock smashed into the back of the wood element martial warrior, bringing with it a frightening impact force. Splurt! The wood element martial warrior vomited a mouthful of blood. His body flew out, and he almost fell into the magma pit in the middle. Ling Dong! The earth element martial warrior screamed in fear. Fine. The volcano salamander's magma burst is extremely powerful. Be careful. The wood element martial warrior, Ling Dong, wiped the traces of blood off the corner of his lips as he reminded his companions. He struggled to get up from the ground, but he seemed to be heavily injured. Wood force *1 fire force *2 Oh my god, they dropped force attributes. Wang Ting's gaze was suddenly fixed on the ground. The impact just now had caused 2 force attributes to drop. The volcano salamander noticed that Ling Dong was seriously injured and wanted to kill him first. It moved its huge body and tumbled over. Ling Dong's expression changed. The earth element martial warrior dashed to Ling Dong's side. Earth force exuded out of his body, forming a shield in front of him. He forcefully blocked the volcano salamander's collision again and again. But the two of them still flew out because of the impact. Hurry up and leave. These 2 volcano salamanders are too difficult to deal with. Well, retreat first. The water element martial warrior, who was fighting with another volcano salamander alone, was stronger than the other 2. However, the situation was awful, so he rushed towards his comrades. Leave. The earth element martial warrior held Ling Dong up and retreated towards the entrance of the cave. However, do you think you can come whenever you want and leave when you feel like it? Have you asked me for my opinion? The volcano salamander's thinking was apparent. It blocked the entrance with its huge body, cutting off the only path of retreat for the 3 martial warriors. The other volcano salamander attacked them from the back. These 2 volcano salamanders actually knew how to cooperate with each other. Wang Ting was astounded when he saw this scene. He retracted the aura on his body to prevent the 2 star beasts from noticing him. At the same time, he felt worried for the 3 martial warriors. They were in extreme danger. Damn it! The water element martial warrior in the lead couldn't help but curse. He looked at the 2 volcano salamanders closing in on them with an ugly expression. Ji Quan, what should we do? The other 2 martial warriors looked at him. What else can we do? We can only fight with our lives. I hope that the other people will arrive soon. If they come slightly later, they can only bury our corpses for us. Ji Quan's face turned cold as he said fiercely, let's do it. Ling Dong and the other earth element martial warrior gritted their teeth. As martial warriors, they had seen all kinds of dangers. They just had to give it their best and fight with their lives. If we live, we live. If we don't, we don't. The 3 of them were already prepared to die. They remained alert and combat-ready, seeking the right opportunity to attack. Howl. At this moment, the volcano salamander blocking the entrance suddenly let out a howl of pain. Chapter 81, Star Core. What is this? What just happened? Why did the frightening volcano behemoth cry in agony? The 3 martial warriors were confused. They stared at the volcano salamander that was howling in pain with stunned faces. The other volcano salamander also looked at its companion in astonishment. Brother, are you all right? Why are you staring into space? Attack! A voice suddenly came from behind the wailing volcano salamander. The 3 martial warriors were elated when they heard the voice. It explained the painful expression on the volcano salamander's face. The reinforcements were here. The giant body of the volcano salamander was blocking the entrance, so they couldn't see Wang Ting's figure. That didn't prevent them from reacting, though. They quickly executed their battle techniques and teamed up to attack the other volcano salamander. The volcano salamander blocking the entrance twisted its body, as if it was trying to break free from something. Your spirit is quite strong. Wang Ting held a sharp ice spike in his hand and viciously stabbed it into the body of the volcano salamander. He didn't expect the volcano salamander to be able to struggle so violently. He was slightly surprised. But, I won't let you escape. He leaped up and landed on the body of the volcano salamander. He smashed his fist at the star beast below him. Phantom ice fist. Splurt. The bone-piercing chill on his fist felt like a sharp ice spike. It cracked the scale armor on the volcano salamander's body and penetrated right into the body. Howl. The volcano salamander howled in agony and started to struggle even more frantically. It swung its body as it attempted to throw Wang Ting off. It spurted magma balls out of its mouth and thrashed around the cave. But, it wasn't able to hit Wang Ting at all. All its attacks landed on the cliff walls around it. Boom, boom, boom. Large rocks rolled down. The entire cave was shaking. The three martial warriors' expressions changed when they saw this astonishing destructive power. They evaded the falling stones and increased their attack on the volcano salamander in front of them. Wang Ting stood on the back of the volcano salamander. He was like a skiff in flood, getting tossed and turned all over. He grabbed the horn on the volcano salamander's head tightly to remain on the back. His other hand wasn't idle either. He pushed it into the body of the star beast and grabbed its heart. Splat. With a forceful squeeze, the soft organ squashed like a watermelon. Then, the salamander's body froze, and it lost all its strength. Boom. Wang Ting jumped down from the body of the volcano salamander and allowed the huge corpse to smash into the ground. A loud thud shook the listeners. He had killed it. Wang Ting heaved a sigh of relief. As expected, star beasts weren't easy to deal with. If he didn't rely on his ice element that had a natural advantage over the fire element and his sneak attack, he might not have been able to kill it so easily. He looked at his attribute panel and smiled bitterly. Blank attribute, 27. He had managed to earn 81 points of blank attributes by killing mutated beasts in the combat assessment. Now, there were only 27 points left. At first, he planned to use the blank attributes on the attributes that were harder to earn, such as spirit, enlightenment, or spiritual sight. But, in order to defeat the volcano salamander, he had to inject 54 blank attributes to his ice force, allowing it to jump directly from 16 to 70 points. 7100, 1-star soldier level martial warrior. Now, his ice force exceeded his fire force by a huge gap. He hoped that he would have some gains from the killing. His gaze landed on the corpse of the volcano salamander. Fire force *3 strength *15. When he saw fire force *3, his eyes lit up. Not bad. After picking them up, he looked at the battle circle of the three martial warriors. The trio worked together while the volcano salamander fought alone. It kept retreating, but very soon, it met its doom. With a loud bang, the huge body collapsed, stirring a cloud of dust. The three of them sighed in relief. They turned around and saw the volcano salamander that had already been killed by Wang Ting. They were stunned. That was fast. Then, their gaze landed on Wang Ting. The three of them looked at each other. What was this? Where did this high school student come from? Where were the reinforcements? Are you an examinee? Ji Quan asked in shock. Did you kill the star beast? That's right. Wang Ting walked over and pretended to observe the volcano salamander. However, he was actually picking up the dropped attribute bubbles. Wood force *1 fire force *2. These two were the ones that were dropped first. Wood force *1 water force *1 fire force *1 earth force *2 water force *1 water force *1 fire force *1 wood force *1. These attribute bubbles were dropped when the three martial warriors were in a heated battle with the volcano salamander. Wang Ting almost burst out laughing in glee. There were so many force attributes. Wood, water, fire, and earth, all four elements were present. Out of the four, he didn't have two elements before. Now, he had 6 different elements of force on his attributes panel. They were fire, ice, wood, earth, water, and poison. He wondered if he would be able to summon the Chaos Dragon after he collected all the attributes and realize his dream. You really killed it. You're a martial warrior. The three of them looked at Wang Ting in disbelief. They couldn't believe their eyes. Wang Ting was too lazy to reply to them. He walked to the edge of the pit in the middle of the cave and looked down. Have y'all seen a lady here? Lady? Nope. The three martial warriors were still in shock. When they heard Wang Teng's question, they exchanged glances with one another and shook their heads. Maybe she didn't come down. I was thinking too much. Based on her personality, she won't overestimate her ability. Wang Teng thought to himself. So the volcano wasn't erupting. Were these two-star beasts up to mischief? He pointed at the two-star beasts and asked. That's right. This extinct volcano shows no sign of reviving. These two-star beasts probably stirred up the fire force at the bottom of this volcano, causing the ground to shake. Of course, if we hadn't stopped the star beasts in time, there was still a chance that the volcano would have erupted, Ji Quan explained. Wang Teng nodded. Since he didn't find Lin Chuhan, he wanted to leave. If there isn't anything else, I'll leave first. Wait! Ji Quan shouted. Huh? What's the matter? Wang Ting stopped unconsciously. You were the one who killed this volcano salamander. The skin on its body and its horns are good materials for making weapons. They are quite expensive. There's even a chance that there's a fire element star core in its body. If so, the price will shoot up. According to the rules between martial warriors, it's yours, Ji Quan said. Even if I killed it during my actual combat assessment. Wang Teng knew this rule. He also knew that the price of star beasts was much higher than mutated beasts. But, he was in the midst of his actual combat assessment, so he chose to give it up unwillingly. He didn't expect Ji Quan to raise it on his own. Star beast is not part of the examination. Also, if you hadn't helped us, the three of us would probably be dead by now. One star beast isn't much. Ji Quan smiled and replied. The other two martial warriors nodded. They agreed with his words. Also, there was one thing they didn't say out loud. The young man in front of them was an examinee. He became a martial warrior at such a young age. There was a bright and promising future in front of him. Using a star beast to exchange for his good impression, there was no loss, only gains. Wang Teng nodded. He didn't say anything and just stabbed the battle sword in his hand into the corpse of the volcano salamander. He lifted his sword slightly, and a fiery red round-shaped object full of bumps and hollows rolled out. Star core. The three martial warriors were instantly dumbstruck. Was he so lucky? Although there was a chance that there would be a star core inside, the probability wasn't high. Sometimes, they might not be able to find one star core even after killing more than 10 star beasts. But, look at Wang Ting. He killed one star beast and got one star core. This possibility was atrocious. Chapter 82, Snatch. When the three martial warriors saw Wang Ting digging up a star core from the corpse of this volcano salamander, they were flabbergasted. They hurriedly went to the one they killed and cut open its stomach. There was nothing. They searched for a long time, but they didn't find anything. Was this the difference between a lucky and an unlucky person? Wang Ting looked at the trio and suddenly felt that their faces were a bit black. Ji Quan took a deep breath and looked at the star core in Wang Ting's hands. He was slightly jealous as he said, Wang Ting, you are really lucky. There are only 2 star beasts, and one of them actually had a star core. You even killed the one that had it. Maybe it's because I'm more handsome, Wang Ting replied casually. The three martial warriors were sorry that were ugly. The three martial warriors felt as though a horde of horses had stampeded on their hearts and trampled on their small weak souls. It looks like you have already resolved the issue. At this moment, a voice came from the entrance of the cave. A valiant-looking man walked out the next instant. Wang Ting turned around and met the man's gaze. A powerful aura surged towards him, leaving him dumbstruck. What a terrifying aura. Who is this person? The moment this thought appeared in Wang Ting's mind, the three martial warriors ran forward instantly and bowed in respect. Governor! Governor! Wang Ting was shocked senseless when he heard this address. A stunned expression was written all over his face. There was only one person in the entire Donghai who had the right to use this address. The governor of Donghai, the most powerful person in the entire Donghai. If director he was a tycoon, the governor of Donghai was the tycoon among the tycoons. Wang Ting had lived twice. If he hadn't practiced martial arts the second time, based on his original status and identity, he would never be able to meet someone at this level. However, he met him now, and the person was just in front of his eyes. I've seen your performance during the actual combat assessment. Not bad, Governor Jiang suddenly spoke to Wang Teng. Wang Teng didn't expect the guy would compliment him. His heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly replied in a modest tone, "You're speaking too highly of me." Governor Jiang nodded. He didn't continue and turned to look at the three martial warriors. You killed these two star beasts in time and prevented the volcano from erupting. You will gain merit. The three martial warriors were elated. They exchanged glances with one another. Just as they were about to say something, hurried footsteps were heard outside the cave. Director He, Fu Tiandao, and Qin Hanxian had arrived. The examinees have all been sent to safe places. However, there are many deaths. Director He walked beside Governor Jiang and whispered to him. Governor Jiang nodded expressionlessly. Director He immediately felt pressured. Large beads of perspiration filled up his forehead. He bent down slightly and saw Wang Ting and the two star beasts' corpses from the corner of his eyes. A glimmer appeared in his eyes. Ji Quan, you killed these two star beasts. Director He suddenly asked the three martial warriors. Ji Quan smiled bitterly and replied, Governor, Director He, we only killed one of the two star beasts. The other star beast was killed by Wang Teng here. Without his help, we wouldn't have been able to complete this mission. The second he finished speaking, everyone was shocked. Their gazes immediately landed on Wang Teng, who was standing at the side, in unplanned unison. Director He had somewhat predicted this situation. He had a clearer understanding of the three martial warriors' abilities, so he knew that it was difficult for them to tackle two star beasts at once, much less kill them in such a short period. Thus, there was a high possibility that someone had lent them a hand. Besides this little young man, Wang Teng, who hid his true capabilities, he couldn't think of anyone else. However, he was still astounded and suspicious when he heard that Wang Ting had killed a star beast alone. He wasn't the only one. Even Fu Tiandao and Qin Hanxian, who already knew that Wang Ting was a martial warrior, found it surprising. Becoming a martial warrior at his age was impressive enough. If he also possessed the battle prowess to kill a star beast alone, this fellow must be a monster. The two principals of Balian Martial House and Leitang Martial House were also in disbelief. They stared at the three martial warriors and asked, "Are you sure that this fellow killed the star beast alone? Are you sure?" Governor Jiang frowned and questioned them too. Martial warrior, and he was able to kill a star beast. Was there really such an amazing and extremely talented genius in this batch of examinees? Ji Quan, you need to be responsible for your words. Don't compromise your own interest, Director He reminded him. Although he wished that Wang Ting was able to make a stellar performance and gain Governor Jiang's attention, he didn't want the three martial warriors to lie to them. Ji Quan gave a bitter smile and replied, Governor Jiang, Director He, how can we lie to you about this? If you don't believe us, you can take a look at the wound on the volcano salamander's corpse. It died not long ago, so traces of force should still be left. The force on it is different from ours. Governor Jiang and the other leaders came beside the corpse. They observed and felt the wound. Soon, they made their judgment. Indeed, there's only one force. But, this force is ice force. The next moment, Wang Ting felt the intense gazes of multiple powerful bosses landing on his body. An uncomfortable feeling engulfed his entire body, and he shuddered. Ice Force was a special mutated force outside the five main element forces: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. In summary, these five basic forces were more commonly seen while the other mutated forces were harder to find. These mutated forces were powerful, and they also came with special effects. The ability to possess a mutated force was a sign of his talent. Other people could only be envious. Governor Jiang suddenly burst out laughing. He patted Wang Ting's shoulder heavily and said, "You're good. You're very good. Our Donghai will definitely shine this year. Let's see who dares to look down on us." The other leaders were elated too. All of them started chiming in. The governor is right. Donghai will definitely make its mark this year. That's right. We'll show the other large provinces that as a coastal special economic zone, our Donghai is an important city too. We will not lose to them. Good boy, are you interested in joining my Leitang martial house? You can make any request. Jiang Hong, where is your face? Wang Ting, why don't you come to my Balian martial house? Whatever Leitang martial house can give you, we can give you more. You two bastards, Wang Ting is a member of my Jisin martial house. How can you be so shameless and snatch my man right in front of me? Fu Tiandao was jumping around in anger. These two people were so shameless. How could they be so forthright? Were they looking down on him? I've asked my men to check. Wang Ting is just a martial disciple student at your Jisin martial house. He isn't an official martial warrior member. He has the right to choose. Jiu Hefi sneered. That's right. He can choose the person who gives him the most benefits. That's absolutely normal. Jiang Hong crossed his arms in front of his chest and said calmly, "Oh my temper, are you looking for a fight? Come, come, come." Chapter 83. The prettier the lady, the more dangerous she was. A fight seemed imminent between the three principals. Everyone gave a wry smile. Even Governor Jiang felt his head hurt. All right, you all are almost 40 years old. Why are you still acting like children snatching a toy? Don't you find it embarrassing? Only Governor Jiang was able to reprimand them. The three principals turned silent at once. However, they continued glaring at one another. They would probably fight after they went back to solve this matter. Wang Ting was in a daze right from the beginning. Why are you snatching me without asking my opinion? Of course, his motive was reached. He had displayed the ability of a martial warrior, and the effect was much better than predicted. Thinking about this, he winked at Director He. Director He remained stern and righteous, as if he didn't see anything. This was a drama king too. Why did he say too? Since this issue is solved, let's go down the mountain. We need to inform the examinees' parents about what happened during the martial arts exam this time. Governor Jiang's tone was a little heavy. Director He's expression wasn't good either. As the head of the Ministry of Education, he could hardly escape the blame. Fortunately, there was Wang Teng, his lifesaver, this year. If not, he wouldn't be able to keep his position. As for his promotion, there was probably no chance of it anymore. Director He wasn't in a good mood as he thought of all these. Everyone prepared to leave the mountain. Wang Teng, it's quite troublesome to deal with the other materials on the body of the star beast. If you trust us, we can help you to take care of them and sell them for you. After that, we will transfer the money to you. What do you think? Asked Ji Quan. The three of them became even more enthusiastic towards Wang Ting after seeing the leader's attitude. As expected, this fellow had a huge potential. They could just do it conveniently, so why not? We are suck-ups. Are you kidding? We are martial warriors. Are we that kind of person? All right, sorry to trouble you. Wang Ting nodded. He didn't reject their help. It would save him the effort of looking for channels to sell the items. He wasn't worried that the three martial warriors would play small tricks. The Star Core was already in his hands, and there were so many leaders watching. He felt that they wouldn't be that stupid to dupe him. Wang Ting told them his bank account number, then followed Governor Jiang and the other leaders down the mountain. Along the way, he saw many mutated beasts' corpses, as well as the bodies of examinees. The staff at the exam venue were dealing with the aftermath of the accident and carrying the bodies down the mountain. Wang Ting's heart felt heavy. He felt worried for Lin Chuhan once again. That pile of meat isn't her, right? Lin Chuhan was so weak. What if she fell into the beast tide? She won't have any chance of surviving. This is bad. This is very bad. He carried all sorts of bad thoughts in his mind as he returned to the camping ground. The examinees were all sitting on the ground, not caring about their image at all. Bloodstains could be seen on everyone's body, and they looked extremely disheveled. Some examinees were injured heavily, so there was medical staff attending to them. Sobs could be heard everywhere. The brutality of the martial arts exam this time had a great impact on the examinees. They suffered what they shouldn't be suffering at this age. Wang Ting attracted everyone's attention when he came back with Governor Jiang and the other leaders. But they didn't have the mood to care about him at this moment. They just glanced at him and then retracted their gazes. Wang Ting. A voice filled with pleasant surprise suddenly sounded amidst the crowd. Wang Ting turned around and saw Lin Chuhan waving at him. "Leaders, my friend is calling me. I will head over there," Wang Ting said to Governor Jiang and the others beside him. "Go ahead." These old foxes immediately gave him a knowing look as they smiled and replied to him. Wang Ting felt a headache coming on. He couldn't bear the gazes these big guns were throwing at him. "Can you respect your identity as leaders? Do you have to be so gossipy?" Wang Ting walked towards Lin Chuhan helplessly. Looking at the pretty face, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, nothing terrible had happened. He couldn't even explain the feeling of relief he was experiencing now. "Are you all right?" Lin Chuhan asked him in a hurry the moment he came close. "How can I not be all right?" Wang Teng replied casually. Young Master Wang, Yang Jian was sitting beside them. His leg was injured and was bandaged, making it twice as thick as normal. He was unable to stand up. "What happened to your leg?" asked Wang Teng. "I was scratched by a mutated beast." Fortunately, the principal of Balian Martial House arrived in time. If not, I would have died there. Yang Jian still had lingering scares. Then, he said with slight excitement, "You didn't see how impressive Principal Jiu of Balian Martial House was. He used one move, just one, and the mutated beasts around us were annihilated. There were more than 10 mutated beasts." Wang Ting knew that this fellow was fine when he saw his reaction. If he wasn't, he would be crying for his mom now. He turned and asked Lin Chuhan, "Did you drop something?" "Did I drop something? I don't think so." Lin Chuhan shook her head. "Check if your examination identity card is still there." Wang Teng was speechless. Lin Chuhan hadn't realized that she had lost her examination identity card even until now. Lin Chuhan hurriedly searched her body. Then, she exclaimed frantically, "Oh shit, my identity card is really gone. Take it." Wang Teng took out Lin Chuhan's examination identity card from his pocket and passed it to her. He shook his head and continued, "You have my respect. You even lost your examination identity card. Thank you. Thank you so much." Lin Chuhan heaved a sigh of relief. "Where did you find it?" "Yeah, about that. What were you doing at the top of the volcano?" "I found this identity card there. Don't you know that it's very dangerous?" Wang Teng was furious. "Who says that it's dangerous there? If the accident hadn't happened, it was just an extinct volcano. But, for some reason, I noticed that there were no mutated beasts at the peak of the volcano. It was very safe," Lin Chuhan refuted with her own logic. "There is no mutated beast there." It was Wang Teng's turn to be shocked now. "That's right. After I killed 5 mutated beasts, I realized that it's very safe at the peak, so I planned to stay there until the exam ended. I didn't expect an accident to happen. Fortunately, I followed behind the beast tide. I managed to come back safely," said Lin Chuhan. "The ordinary mutated beasts probably didn't dare to go to the peak because of the fire element star beasts." This was Wang Ting's guess. "Wait, you killed 5 mutated beasts?" He suddenly regained his senses and exclaimed in surprise. "Why can't I kill mutated beasts?" Lin Chuhan glared at Wang Ting, feeling that he was belittling her. "That's not it. I was just a little stunned because you're so weak," Wang Ting teased her. "Me?" Lin Chuhan scoffed. She said unhappily, "I may not be as strong as you, but I'm smarter." All right, you're smart. So, how did you kill the 5 mutated beasts?" "Smart Ms. Lin, please tell me your glorious deeds," Wang Teng asked with interest as he crossed his legs and sat down. "What do you mean by smart Ms. Lin?" Don't anyhow give me a nickname. Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes. But she still happily told him how she killed the mutated beasts. Wang Teng's mouth fell wide open after he heard her story. He felt that Lin Chuhan was the real master of being sly. He didn't expect this righteous person to use such terrifying and chilly means. After Lin Chuhan entered the primary forest, she utilized what she learned in the 5 years of martial arts exam, 3 years of mock papers thoroughly and flexibly. For instance, she wiped her body with a pungent tree juice so that the mutated beasts wouldn't be able to smell her. Then, she spent 3 hours looking for a dead mutated beast and hid the poisonous herbs she found in the forest in the mutated beast's body. She waited for the beast to be eaten. It was best not to forget that regular examinees weren't able to think of this method. Also, whether it was recognizing the useful herbs, looking for mutated beasts that died naturally, or waiting for mutated beasts to fall into the trap, all these required a huge amount of time. Without ample patience, one would not be able to do it. Of course, there was an element of luck involved. However, without prior knowledge, strong patience, and the preparations beforehand, luck wouldn't befall her. Her patience and calculation were impressive. His mother was right. The prettier a lady, the more dangerous she was. Chapter 84. Examination ended at first glance. Lin Chuhan's operation didn't seem like much, but if you thought about it carefully, it was awe-inspiring. Among all the examinees here, even counting generously, not more than 5 people could come up with this method. This was a safe estimate. It could even be said that Lin Chuhan was the only person who thought of this idea, but the things she did to win, TSK, it feels a little creepy. Lin Chuhan was stunned when she noticed Wang Ting's gaze turning strange as he looked at her. A second later, she understood what he was thinking. This bastard is always laughing at me. All I wanted was to pass the exam. Don't you know how smelly the tree juice was when I wiped it on my body? When I was waiting for the mutated beasts to fall into the trap, I got stung by bugs again and again. She felt sad just thinking about it. She glared at Wang Tung furiously. No matter what, you will definitely pass the martial arts exam this time. Let me congratulate you first, Wang Ting coughed awkwardly and said. A hint of happiness appeared on Lin Chuhan's face. But she still felt worried. I still hope that I can get selected by top universities. However, my actual combat assessment result isn't good. I hope that my papers will be better. Some top universities emphasized a lot on the result of the written exams. They would admit outstanding students especially, even if their actual combat assessment result was a little lacking. It shouldn't be a problem, Wang Teng consoled her. Hey, do you think that the results this year will be counted after the accident? Yong Jian suddenly asked. Wang Teng and Lin Chuhan were stunned for a moment when they heard this. Wang Teng looked at the sky. It was almost dawn. The sky was already turning white, and the first ray of sunlight could be seen on the horizon. When the beast tide appeared, it should be less than an hour until the end of the exam. Its impact on the result shouldn't be too great. Most likely, they won't cancel the results. Also, have you forgotten what the purpose of the actual combat assessment is? Wang Teng asked in a meaningful tone. In actual combat, any accidents are assessment. Lin Chuhan and Yang Jian said simultaneously. That's right. Wang Teng nodded. I think the performance of the students during the beast tide would also be considered. Thus, those examinees that didn't kill 5 mutated beasts but performed well might have a chance. That would be great. I only killed 4 mutated beasts. When the beast tide happened, I was fighting with my 5th mutated beast. Just as I was about to kill it, it ran away. However, I saved an examinee after that and even got praised by the principal of Balian Martial House. Yang Jian was still worried. After all, these were just their guesses. What if the examiners were fixated on the numbers? That would be unlucky for them. There was nothing Yang Jian and the other unfortunate examinees could do. Wang Teng and Lin Chuhan stood in silent tribute for a few seconds to express their pity. Oh, right. How did they take care of the beast tide? Asked Wang Teng. What else can they do? They used the cannons and fired at the mutated beasts until the ones behind got so frightened that they didn't dare to come down anymore, Lin Chuhan explained. There's a limited number of mutated beasts on the island, so this was just a small-sized beast tide. Once the cannons are put into action, all demons and devils have to retreat. Yang Jian smiled and said. Wang Ting chatted casually with his friends. On the other side, Governor Jiang and the other leaders went to the central control room and held a meeting for an entire hour. After that, they walked out and came to the platform in the center of the camping ground. Governor Jiang placed his hand behind his back and looked at the depressed examinees below. He opened his mouth and said, "Everyone, I'm the governor of Donghai." The governor of Donghai. Everyone looked up when his voice rang out. They stared at him absent-mindedly. Then, an uproar occurred. "Oh my God, it's the governor of Donghai. Our governor came personally. Did he come to see our actual combat assessment? Governor, how will the result be calculated? Many of us missed the criteria to pass by just a little. Governor, many of our classmates died in the beast tide. It's really sad." The examinees started shouting continuously, as though they had found a pillar of support. Governor Jiang didn't stop them and allowed them to vent their emotions. He only continued speaking after the voices died down. "It's our responsibility and fault that such an accident happened. We will compensate all the examinees that died in this unfortunate incident. However, you have to remember one thing. The martial warrior path is 1,000 times harder and tougher than this. You might have only seen the glamorous and powerful side of martial warriors, but you don't know the amount of blood and sweat they had to pay. The world of martial warriors is cruel and bloody. Your performance during the beast tide will be calculated in your results. People who performed well will have additional points, and those that performed badly can only rely on the number of mutated beasts killed for their final result. Now, let me announce the official ending of the actual combat assessment." The instant he finished speaking, a commotion exploded among the examinees. Was the world of martial warriors really so brutal? Before the exam, they had heard of the brutality and viciousness of the martial warriors' world. After experiencing the beast tide, they realized that what they heard didn't hold a candle to the real thing. And this was just the start. Thinking about this, the expressions on many examinees' faces changed slightly. Some of them had decided to take part in the martial arts exam because they were dazzled by the fame and glamour. They hoped to have good prospects in the future. Now, the dangers of the martial warrior world changed their perception entirely. They were considering whether they wanted to continue walking on this path. There was no free lunch in the world. If you were given a certain position, you needed to bear the relevant responsibility and risk. Of course, to the examinees that were firm and resolute in becoming martial warriors, Governor Jiang's speech instilled them with even more confidence. Truly powerful people wouldn't perform badly during the beast tide. Thus, including the performance during the beast tide was beneficial to them. People like Yang Jian, who were on the brink of getting accepted, were happy with this announcement. At least they would be able to get into the martial arts course. As for danger, looking at how happy Yang Jian was even after getting injured, it was easy to tell that he didn't take it to heart. "All examinees, please prepare to return." A voice came from the platform. It was the officer in charge of the exam. Governor Jiang had already left. The examinees were all covered in blood. Some of it was their own, while some belonged to the mutated beasts. They queued up and boarded the force-floating airship parked on the empty field at the side. A few examinees were in a coma, so they were carried on board. Others walked up with the help of their friends. The dead examinees. An examinee suddenly pointed to the stretchers covered with white clothes in front of them. They were carried into the back of the force-floating airship. Normally, that was where the luggage would go. The examinees instantly stood up straight and saluted with their gazes. They looked at the blood-stained white clothes. A dark and oppressive atmosphere pervaded the air around them. They were peers, but these people had reached the end of their lives. The same thought appeared in the examinees' hearts. They felt complicated. Chapter 85. Are y'all getting arrogant or am I too weak to hold a blade? The atmosphere on the force-floating airship was a little heavy, but gradually, everyone started to discuss the examination result. There were many examinees gathered around the advanced stage martial disciples. They asked them how many mutated beasts they had killed and then gasped in exclamation and admiration. Yang Peng, you actually killed 13 mutated beasts, including 3 high-level and 4 middle-level. One of the female students looked at the cold and cool-looking young man in a worshipping manner. The young man's features were well-defined, and he was very handsome. However, he exuded a cold and distant aura. Yet, it was even more fatal to the ladies. His ability complemented his looks, so he was highly popular among the ladies. In Huiying High School, Yang Peng had almost been a male idol among the students. As compared to Wang Teng, who was a bottom feeder, cocky, and playful, the distance between them was equivalent to the distance between the earth and the sky. TSK, that bunch of bootlickers. Yang Jian pouted in disdain. Then, he smiled and leaned towards Wang Ting. Young Master Wang, tell me your results and let me flatter you too. Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes. She felt so disgusted that goosebumps appeared all over her body. Yang Jian was so shameless. Get off. Wang Ting glared at Yang Jian speechlessly. Honestly, young Master Wang, how many mutated beasts did you kill? You must have killed more than Yang Peng. Yang Peng sniggered. He was afraid Wang Ting wouldn't tell him, so he dragged Lin Chuhan onto his boat. Class monitor Lin probably wants to hear it too. Class monitor, am I right? I didn't say that. Lin Chuhan tilted her head and gave a look of contempt. Wang Ting shook his head. He felt that it was nothing worth hiding, so he said directly, 29. 19 of them are high-level mutated beasts, and 10 are middle-level. Yang Jian's jaws dropped. He stammered, young Master Wang, are you kidding me? Lin Chuhan was stunned for a few seconds before she said, Wang Ting, don't boast all the time. We know that you're strong, but you aren't that strong. That's right. That's right, Yang Jian agreed and nodded. That was 29 mutated beasts, including 19 high-level mutated beasts. How was that possible? They couldn't believe that Wang Ting was so frighteningly powerful even if they cracked their head. Lately, I feel that no matter how much truth I say, there are always people who don't believe me, Wang Ting said bitterly. Seriously. The two still refused to believe him. Wang Ting didn't explain himself. His result wouldn't change, and that was all that mattered. Also, if they knew that he even killed a star beast along with all the high-level mutated beasts, they might explode on the spot. Ha ha ha, at this moment, a peal of laughter sounded suddenly beside them. A young man wearing the Huiying High School uniform was laughing until he bent his back. When he saw everyone shifting their attention to him, he barely restrained his laughter and said, Did you know what I heard just now? This Wang Ting from number 1 high school says that he actually killed 29 mutated beasts, including 19 high-level ones. Don't you think that this is funny? Even if you want to boast, this isn't how you do it. The other examinees started laughing when they heard his words. Haha, this is just too much. Although Wang Ting is an extreme martial disciple, it's impossible for him to kill 29 mutated beasts. Don't even talk about high-level mutated beasts. Killing 19 middle-level mutated beasts is tough enough. Wang Ting was stunned. He was just chatting casually with Lin Chuhan and Yang Jian. Why did this stupid fellow come out to proclaim his presence? Had he been too kind recently, so anyone dared to bully him? Are you Wang Ting? Yang Peng walked over at this instant. I heard that you are an extreme martial disciple and have almost wanted to have a duel with you. However, looking at how nonsensical you are, your true ability must not be as strong as what they said. I have no interest in dueling with you anymore. Page, I didn't expect the extreme martial disciple to be like this. Another ordinary-looking young man walked over. He had a birthmark on his face, so he was easily recognized. He was the advanced stage martial disciple, Dong Fei, from Shiyang High School. Wang Teng, we represent number 1 high school when we come out. I hope that you can conduct yourself with dignity. Ju Wu and Dong Fei from number 1 high school came forward together. They seemed to know each other. Ju Wu said to Dong Fei, "Please excuse our schoolmate." The other advanced stage martial disciples also huddled together. Some people didn't intend to interfere, so they just stood at the side and watched the show with interest. Manrong frowned and said, "Ju Wu, what you said is too much." "Manrong, how can you say that? We are all students from Donghai No. 1. We must pay attention to the reputation of our school. Also, I'm just reminding Wang Ting." Ju Wu turned and looked at Wang Ting as he spoke. "Wang Ting, am I right? This is ridiculous. We are just chatting casually. What does it have to do with you?" Lin Chuhan stood up and said coldly. Flames of anger burned in her heart. "That's right. We were just talking among ourselves and didn't boast to anyone else. Why are you all so anxious? I think that you are just jealous that someone is more powerful than you, so you're finding trouble out of nothing." Yang Jian despised these people. Li Rongcheng was standing among the crowd. There was hidden enmity in his eyes, but there was also a tinge of fear. When he saw Yang Peng, Ju Wu, and the other students provoking Wang Ting for no reason, he scoffed in his heart. "You must have never seen a devil before. Look at how happy you are. You must think that you can bully this extreme martial disciple, right? Yet, you don't know that you are digging your own grave. You will cry later. Haha, things are getting more and more interesting." Li Rongcheng laughed crazily in his heart. He could see the other people getting tortured by Wang Ting just like him. This was a happy thing. Yang Peng and Dong Fei's eyes lit up when they saw Lin Chuhan's beautiful face. For a moment, they were a bit senseless. "Ms. Lin Chuhan, you misunderstood me. I'm thinking from our school's perspective. We are all students from Donghai No. 1. We can't ruin the reputation of our school. We are not envious of Wang Teng." Ju Wu gave a righteous look, as though he really cared about the school and was thinking of it only. He knew Lin Chuhan, but they didn't have any interaction in the past. Now, when he saw her, he started to get a little restless. The university entrance exam had ended. If he was able to get this beautiful lady to be his girlfriend, it would be great. "You're Lin Chuhan, right? I'm Yang Peng from Huiying High School. I'm an advanced stage martial disciple. Nice to meet you. I have no other intention regarding Wang Ting's issue. I just hope that he can restrain himself. After all, words can cause trouble." Yang Peng pretended that he was doing everything for Wang Ting's sake. "That's right. I didn't purposely offend Wang Ting. I just heard that there was an extreme martial disciple in Donghai No. 1, so I had high expectations for this person. I was a little disappointed when I heard him bragging just now." "Oh right, I'm Dong Fei from Shiyang High School. Ms. Lin Chuhan, can we exchange WeChat?" Dong Fei was unwilling to back down. Lin Chuhan looked at these people and suddenly felt extremely disgusted by their faces. "Phut!" Wang Ting couldn't help but laugh out loud. He stood up and said, "Are you all getting arrogant, or am I too weak to hold a blade?" Chapter 86, Ugly. After Wang Ting stood up, a terrifying aura surged out from his body and engulfed the three male students. Boom! His presence surged like the roaring waves in the sea. The three people's expressions changed immediately. They bent down, and their faces turned as white as paper. How can he be so strong? They were struck dumb from the shock. Astonishment and disbelief filled up their faces. They thought that this was the aura of an extreme martial disciple, but they didn't know that Wang Ting had already released the power of a martial warrior in his fit of anger. Tap, tap, tap. Wang Ting walked towards them, step by step. Every step he took, his aura increased a little. The pressure it caused on the three people increased correspondingly. Wang Ting stopped in front of Yang Peng. "Did you say that you want to have a duel with me? Who gave you the confidence to say that? Have I ever agreed?" The series of questions caused Yang Peng to throw away his act of disguise. He was extremely furious, and his face turned red like a ripe peach. "I didn't say anything, but you have already finished your solo performance. Who gave you the face to do it?" The last question infuriated Yang Peng so much that he almost vomited blood. Ever since he was a child, He had always been complimented and flattered by others. He had never been humiliated so blatantly by someone before. He wished he could find a hole on the ground and bury himself. Wang Ting ignored him. He walked directly in front of Dong Fei. Did you say that you were disappointed in me? What does your disappointment have to do with me? Why are you putting on a show in front of me? Also, you are so ugly. Where did you get the guts to ask the lady for her WeChat? Did you bring a mirror when you came out? Don't you know how good-looking you are? Are you as handsome as me? Do you know that looks can earn you money? If we stand beside each other, I'll definitely be the one getting chosen by sugar mummies. You can only stay at the side. You're so ugly. Come, say it along with me. UG ugly. UG ugly. Do you understand it now? Wang Ting got more furious as he spoke. How dare these bastards lay their eyes on Lin Chuhan? This was something he couldn't put up with. The students around them ran far away when they saw his aggressive posture. However, when they heard this sentence, they burst out laughing. On the other hand, Dong Fei's face had already turned green with anger. The birthmark on his face was his biggest pain. Normally, because of his ability, his classmates and friends didn't dare to say anything. However, they would judge him behind his back. Now, he got humiliated right in front of everyone. His lungs were almost going to explode in anger. He panted heavily. If he wasn't suppressed by Wang Ting's aura and he couldn't move, he would have pounced on Wang Ting and fought with him right then and there. Wang Ting continued to walk to Ju Wu. Ju Wu's expression changed. He instantly felt regretful. Why did he have to run off his darn mouth in front of Wang Ting? However, he didn't expect the strength of an extreme martial disciple to be so powerful. Was the difference between an extreme martial disciple and an advanced stage martial disciple so huge? Ju Wu, you have such a strong sense of righteousness. Wang Ting, there must be some misunderstanding between us. Let's talk properly, Ju Wu said with difficulty. Talk properly? As Wang Ting looked at him, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Then, his expression turned cold, and he continued, but I don't want to talk properly with you. Immediately, he lifted his leg and swept it in front of him. Ju Wu's body flew out like a sandbag in a straight line. He remained in the air for around 6 meters before slamming heavily on the ground. The examinees at the side dodged in surprise. Cough, cough. Blood dripped down the corners of Ju Wu's lips. He struggled and realized that he couldn't get up. He was dumbstruck. He's so powerful. How can he be so powerful? His heart was filled with doubts. Wang Teng's strength was beyond his wildest imagination. As an advanced stage martial disciple, he was nothing in front of Wang Teng. Wang Ting shifted his gaze away from Ju Wu and scanned the crowd. He saw the figure hiding secretly at the back. That person, come out. Yes, I'm talking about you. Stop hiding. I saw you. Weren't you laughing really loudly a moment ago? Why are you being a coward now? The examinees around the area where Wang Ting was pointing moved away. They were afraid of getting implicated. The examinee had nowhere to hide, so he could only walk forward. Wang Ting, bang. The moment he spoke, Wang Ting slapped his face. Get out. Wang Ting glared at him coldly. This was the examinee that had started everything. If not, none of this would have happened. The young man covered his red face. He didn't dare to say anything and just ran into the crowd while looking at the ground. No one knew which corner he went to hide. Wang Ting looked around him. In an instant, no one dared to exchange glances with him. For the rest of the journey, the 3 advanced martial disciples remained quiet. They had seen the difference between them and Wang Ting, so even if they were humiliated, they didn't dare to seek trouble with him. They could only hide their hatred towards him deep inside their hearts. They would take revenge if there was a chance in the future. The other examinees looked at Wang Ting from afar as they discussed in low tones. There was admiration as well as a hint of fear. But they were full of respect for this young man. The 3 advanced stage martial disciples always acted arrogantly in front of them. They had offended many people. Just now, Wang Ting had suppressed the 3 of them alone. They didn't even dare to make a peep. It felt so good. There was only one word they could use to describe Wang Teng: impressive. The force-floating airship flew towards Donghai. The journey was peaceful throughout, and no commotion arose again. Not long after, the force-floating airship finally floated down gradually over the military district. It stopped on the vast plaza. The examinees disembarked the force-floating airship. Liu Wenxia stood in front of everyone and opened his mouth. Your exam results will be out in 2 days. You can use your examination identity number to search for your results on the internet. Then, you can make your application. It's up to you what university you want to apply to. You can also check the cutoff point for the previous year as a reference. I hope that all of you can get into the university you want. Alright, get into the bus. The examinees got onto the bus again. Liu Wenxia came to look for Wang Ting and brought him to a secluded corner. Wang Ting smiled when he saw Director He. Director He, I thought that you forgot our agreement. Little brat, who do you think I am? Director He glared at Wang Ting. Then, he said with lingering fears, speaking about it, I really have to thank you for this time. If not, I would have suffered badly. Take this. You deserve it. He passed the box containing the star bone to Wang Ting. Wang Ting opened it directly and looked at the contents. He only kept it after confirming that there was nothing wrong with the item. Don't you trust me? Director, he asked helplessly. It's better to ensure that everything is fine in the beginning to prevent trouble in the future. Wang Ting smiled nonchalantly. Makes sense. Director, he nodded. He was satisfied with Wang Teng's performance. Director, he, if there's nothing else, I will leave first. The other students must be waiting anxiously, Wang Teng said. Go ahead. Director, he waved his hand. After Wang Teng parted with Director He boarded the bus with the rest of the examinees. The examinees were all eager to go home. At Liu Wenxi's command, the bus fleet headed towards the city. They were going home. Chapter 87. Something happened when Wang Teng reached home. He noticed that his house was locked. He had no choice but to take out his keys and open the door. He took off his shoes and shouted towards the second floor. Mom, Embark. However, the villa was empty. It was extremely quiet. No one was present. No one's home. Wang Teng walked up the stairs and noticed that the house was empty. Instantly, he found it strange. Have they gone out to play? Wang Ting shook his head helplessly. He felt that his parents were really carefree. He went back to his room and put down his luggage. Then, he took his clothes and walked into the bathroom. He had a good bath. As the sweat and bloodstains on his body got washed away, Wang Ting immediately felt invigorated. The tiredness he was feeling significantly subsided. There was no one at home, so he laid on his bed and counted his gains this time. Enlightenment, 97 Spirit, 92 Talent. Beginner Stage Fire Talent, 11,300. Beginner Stage Ice Talent, 13,300. Beginner Stage Earth Talent, 12,300. Spiritual Sight, Beginner Stage 1, 4/10. Demon Lotus Poison Body, 31,10,000. Beginner Stage Arrow Talent, 5,100. Force, 75,100. Fire, 1-star Soldier Level Martial Warrior, 7,100. Ice, 1-star Soldier Level Martial Warrior, 17,100. Earth, 1-star Soldier Level Martial Warrior, 3,100. Wood, 1-star Soldier Level Martial Warrior, 3,100. Water, 1-star Soldier Level Martial Warrior, 46,100. Poison, 1-star Soldier Level Martial Warrior. Scripture, Red Flame Scripture, Foundation 32,100. Defy Scripture, Foundation 23,100. Earthler Skill Earth Element Shield, Foundation 26,100. Battle Techniques, Basic Battle Techniques, Presence Enlightenment for Fist, Sword, Blade, Footwork, Stick, Basic Arrow Skill, Foundation, Gun Kung Fu, Foundation 2/10. Fire Kirin Sword Skill, Foundation 56,100. Phantom Ice Fist, Foundation 28,100. Knowledge, Basic Subjects, Full Marks, 5 years of Martial Arts Exam, 3 years of Mock Papers, Full Marks, Overall Battle Power, 271 Blank Attribute, 36 Wang Teng scanned his attributes and saw an additional beginner stage arrow talent in his talent row. At the same time, he got a foundation stage basic arrow skill battle technique. These two new attributes came from the same person. As a long-range attack, the arrow was a pretty good choice. He could upgrade it when he had the chance in the future. As for his force, he had two additional elements now, wood and water. But the corresponding skill scriptures and battle techniques gave Wang Teng a headache. It wasn't a bad thing to have more force elements. However, finding the corresponding force skill scriptures and battle techniques required much effort and money. But he was delighted that his ice force and fire force had both crossed 70. The power of these two forces was impressive. They were able to increase his overall battle power greatly. It had reached 271 now. He was slowly moving towards the top standard of a 1-star soldier-level martial warrior. He was also left with 36 blank attributes. At first, after increasing his ice force, he was left with 27 points. But when he was climbing down the mountain, he picked up a few attribute bubbles dropped by the dead mutated beasts along the way. There was a vast number of mutated beasts that had died. Unfortunately, he was with Governor Jiang and the other leaders, so he couldn't collect all the attribute bubbles. If not, he would have gotten more blank attribute. When he killed the star beast, no blank attributes were dropped. He found this a little frustrating. Shouldn't star beasts have a higher probability of dropping blank attributes? Maybe it's just a probability problem. Sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't. But it still gave me a star core. Wang Teng took out the star core and observed it with his spiritual sight. A ball of thick fire force was concentrated in this small star core. The amount of force inside was quite astonishing. He could use this star core to make Dan medicines and refined weapons. It could also be used as a force core. There was a wide range of applications. No wonder the price of the star core was so high. He didn't make a loss since he had gained this star core. A smile appeared at the corner of Wang Teng's lips. He took out the box director he gave him thereafter. There was a star bone inside. Every time he saw this star bone, he couldn't help but feel amazed. It was entirely blackish green and was glittering and translucent. It also gave off a metallic luster. Thin line patterns covered its whole surface, so perfect that it looked like a piece of art. Based on what director he said, this star bone came from a star beast known as the Spirit Shadow Scorpion. It possessed the special ability Spiritual Shadow. Wang Ting touched his chin, a glimmer flashing in his eyes. There was a piece of paper in the box describing this talent ability of the Spirit Shadow Starbone. Wang Ting was dumbfounded when he read the information on the paper. Spiritual Shadow meant being able to move quickly in the dark, as elusive as a ghost or spirit. It was an outstanding ability to catch people off their guards. It would definitely give its opponent unexpected surprises during a battle if it was made into a special weapon. What kind of weapon can it make? For a moment, Wang Ting had no idea. Star bones were extremely rare and precious. He didn't want to rush into this whole thing. It would be a waste of this treasured item. He kept the star core and the star bone properly. Wang Ting went back to his bed. He hadn't slept for an entire night, so exhaustion was washing over his body in waves. His body had its limits. Soon, he fell asleep. When he woke up, it was already 9 a.m. the following day. The moment he woke up and looked at the time, he got a shock. He had slept for 1 day and 1 night. I'm so hungry. He could hear his stomach rumbling. Wang Ting climbed up from his bed and washed up. When he went down the stairs, he saw the helper, Aunt Chen, working in the kitchen instead. He asked in surprise, "Aunt Chen, where is my mother? I came back 2 days ago, but I didn't see her." "Young master, you're awake." "Madam went out early in the morning," said Aunt Chen. "She went out early in the morning? Where did she go?" Wang Ting asked curiously. Something seemed to have happened in the company. "I'm not sure about it. Madam didn't tell me the details," Aunt Chen replied. "Something at the company?" Wang Ting felt even more puzzled. Suddenly, he got an awful feeling in his heart. Mr. Wang hasn't come back ever since he went on the business trip. Aunt Chen hesitated, but she still said it in the end. What? Wang Ting's expression turned ugly. He was almost certain that something terrible had happened. He turned and ran upstairs. After a while, he came down carrying his weapon carrier casket and rushed out of the house in a hurry. Young master, you haven't eaten in 2 days. I heated some buns and soy milk. Bring them along with you. Aunt Chen chased after him and passed the food in her hands. Wang Ting was indeed hungry. He took the breakfast and thanked Aunt Chen. Then, he drove his car out of the garage and sped towards their company building. Half an hour later, Wang Ting arrived at a business district in his car. He drove the car into the office building's parking lot. He took the lift and came to the receptionist. The pretty lady at the front desk stood up and asked, "Hello, how can I help you?" "I want to look for Li Xiumei," Wang Ting replied. The pretty lady at the front desk was stunned. Who is Li Xiumei? Wang Ting was speechless. She didn't even know her boss wife. He looked at the lady's chest. Was this the legendary large chest but no brain? At this moment, a security guard ran over and shouted hurriedly, "Young Master Wang, why are you here?" "You are." Wang Ting looked at the security guard who dashed over. He pondered for a moment, but he couldn't remember the person's name. "Haha, young Master Wang, a man of your eminence has a short memory." Old son," the security guard laughed awkwardly. "Oh, I remember. Old son, the director of the security department." Wang Ting finally remembered the man. "That's me." Old son grinned from ear to ear and nodded. Then, he said to the pretty lady at the front desk, "Little Mai, this is our little boss Wang. Hurry up and greet him." "Young Master Wang." The pretty lady at the front desk was alarmed. She continued in a flurry, "I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you just now." "It's all right. It's not a huge matter." Wang Ting waved his hand. He asked old son, "Did my mom come to the office? Where is she now?" "Madam should be in the meeting room." Boss Bao from the office opposite just came in with a bunch of people. "I think that the deputy general manager Jiao from our company is planning to change jobs." Old son lowered his voice and answered. "Bao Ziqing." Wang Ting squinted. After the Wang family collapsed in his past life, this bastard came out and divided his father's company. In this lifetime, he didn't expect the fellow to jump out before his family met a crisis. It looked like many things had changed. Chapter 88. Rise in revolt. That stupid Bao Ziqing actually came out in advance to cause trouble. No problem, he would take revenge for the old and new grudges today. A cold glimpse appeared in Wang Ting's eyes. He walked towards the conference room without any expressions on his face. "Young Master Wang, wait for me." That Bao Ziqing brought quite a few people. "Let me accompany you there. I can call some people along to add to our number." Old son chased after him in a hurry. At the same time, he took off the intercom on his body and shouted, "Hello, Chen Ergu, can you hear me?" "Yes, I'm here." "Boss, what orders do you have?" A rough voice appeared on the other end of the intercom. The person seemed to be flattering old Sunday. "Hurry up and assemble on the 8th floor. Our enemy has already arrived at our doorstep." "But you didn't notice," old son shouted angrily. "Which bastard is so bold and dares to create trouble in our Xinting? I'll come immediately." A loud commotion could be heard on the other end of the intercom. They caught Chen Ergu shouting, "Time to work," to someone. Then, the line disconnected. Old son laughed awkwardly. "Young Master Wang, this is my nephew. He's not very educated, but he's daring and hardworking. You can watch his performance later." Wang Ting didn't reply. He walked into the lift with old son and went up to the 8th floor. He looked at the familiar but unfamiliar structures around him and headed to the meeting room based on the memory deep inside his mind. The instant he reached the meeting room entrance, he heard Li Xiumei's angry voice inside. "Jiao Gui Ren, my husband treated you very well. How can you collude with outsiders to seize the company's shares when he's in trouble?" "Mrs. Wang, you don't have to make it sound so bad. Boss Wang indeed treats me well, and I'm grateful to him. However, It is in man's nature to strive for better. Boss Bao is a man of great talent and bold vision. His company has more potential, so understandably, I'm more willing to work with him. A man's voice could be heard after that. He sounded so hypocritical that Wang Ting frowned uncontrollably. His expression turned colder. That Deputy Jiao seemed like a good person. I didn't expect him to be a rotten egg, Old Sun said with disgust. Wang Teng didn't say anything, just pushing the door of the meeting room. In an instant, everyone looked at him. Little Ting, why are you here? Li Xiaomei asked in surprise when she saw Wang Ting. She looked exhausted. I heard that something happened, so I came to take a look. Wang Ting walked into the meeting room. He glanced at the men who looked like successful people. They were wearing suits and sitting calmly on the chairs. Little Boss Wang, this is a matter between adults. There's no need for you to interfere, a man who looked around 40 years old said. He was wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. Jiao Gui Ren. Wang Ting smiled calmly and sat down beside Li Xiaomei. He pulled the chair for her. Mom, have a seat. Aren't you tired from standing? As he spoke, he noticed that there was a young lady around 20 years old sitting on Li Xiaomei's right. He exclaimed in surprise, Cousin, you're here too. Younger brother. Wang Yanan nodded at Wang Teng. Grandfather was worried when he heard about this, so he asked me to come and see if I can help. This lady was Wang Teng's uncle, Wang Shenghong's daughter. She graduated from a top university. After she completed her postgraduate study, she joined the Rongshan group that Wang Teng's grandfather had founded. Her capabilities were outstanding, and she gained the approval of the higher authorities in the company within 2 years. She was able to undertake tasks alone now. It was obvious that his uncle sent her over to help because he trusted her ability. Jiao Guiren frowned when he saw Wang Ting ignoring him. Anger appeared on his face. In the past, Wang Shenghua had told him about Wang Ting's playful acts frequently. He listened to them until he felt that callus was going to grow on his ears. This arrogant and useless person actually disregarded him. Little Boss Wang is still the same. You don't have any respect for an elder like me. A sinister glimpse flashed past Jiao Guiren's eyes. He took the chance to influence the thoughts of the other higher-ups in the company. Look, this is the future heir of Xington. He shows no respect to his elders and superiors. Are you still going to place your hopes in him? Many of the company's founding members frowned slightly. They had heard of Wang Ting a long time ago. It was all right if he was just arrogant and playful. He was still young, so it was understandable that he would be willful because of his parents' love. After he matured, everything would be fine. But, if he showed no respect to his elders, that was a little disappointing. Li Xiaomei and Wang Yanan shook their heads secretly when they saw everyone's reaction. They exchanged glances and read the helplessness on each other's faces. Wang Ting's sudden arrival had caught them off guard. They were already at a disadvantage, but Jiao Guiren was now making an issue out of Wang Teng's character. Any minor problems could be amplified and move the hearts of the company's founding members. They were in a passive position. Little Boss Wang, we are having a meeting. If you have nothing, you can leave first, a founding member said unhappily. He seemed to think that Wang Ting was kicking up a fuss and embarrassing them. Why should I leave? Wang Teng placed his weapon carrier casket on the ground and put his right hand on it as he said indifferently. Mrs. Wang, it looks like your family's education is really bad. Our little boss Wang doesn't know his manners and shows no respect to his elders at all. Boss Wang's ability must be limited since he's unable to teach his child properly. Also, our little boss Wang isn't young anymore. It's time to educate him. If not, he will definitely cause trouble in the future. The fat middle-aged man sitting beside Jiao Guiren laughed as he said. If you can't bear to do it, let me educate him properly for you. Jiao Guiren suddenly burst out laughing as though he had heard a funny joke. The other founding members of the company watched the scene indifferently. A few of them wanted to say something, but the situation was still uncertain. They didn't want to stand out. Bao Ziqing might target them in the future. This time, Bao Ziqing came well prepared. Wang Shangguo was in trouble, and there was no news of him even until now. The company was in danger. No one knew if the company would be able to survive. If it was really bought over by Bao Ziqing, they would need to work under him. It wasn't a wise move to stand out now. However, at this moment, a short middle-aged man suddenly stood up and pointed at Bao Ziqing furiously. Bao Ziqing, you are a reputable businessman. Yet, you are attempting to take over Xintong when our boss Wang isn't around. You even bully and humiliate his wife and son. What is this? Bao Ziqing looked at him mockingly. Before he could speak, Zhou Guiren opened his mouth first. Haha, old Guo, I didn't know that you were such a loyal dog. Guo Mingda was so angry he didn't know what to say. Even a refined lady like Li Xiaomei was trembling in anger. Her face was covered with soot. Just as she was about to blow her fuse, Wang Ting held her hand and patted it softly to comfort her. Then, he stood up slowly. Everyone couldn't help but look at him. He pressed his palm on the marble meeting table in front of him. Force seeped out of his body, and his strength exploded. Boom! Cracks appeared on the entire marble table. Immediately after that, it shattered and smashed on the ground in front of everyone. Chapter 89, Martial Warriors Are Superior. The marble table shattered into pieces and dropped to the ground. Everyone retreated in shock. They were all caught off guard because everything happened so quickly. Some people fell from their chairs, looking extremely bedraggled. Zhou Guiren's foot got smashed by the broken marble table. He screamed in pain, sounding like a pig. Li Xiaomei and Wang Yanan were sitting beside Wang Teng, so all the marble pieces were forced away by Wang Teng. They weren't hurt at all. Even so, they were given a huge scare. They looked at Wang Teng absent-mindedly. Bao Ziqing and the rest of the people were pale in the face. They crawled up from the ground in a disorderly manner. Their suits were dirty from the dust, but they didn't have the time to clean themselves. They were all staring at Wang Ting in astonishment. Oh my God! Uncle, look at our young master Wang's ability. He doesn't need us. Chen Ergu had also hurried over with the rest of the security guards. They were standing outside the door with old Sunday. When they saw this scene, their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Wang Teng walked in front of Bao Ziqing and looked at him. What right do you have to educate me? Brat, don't think that you can be arrogant just because you have some capability. Bao Ziqing swallowed his saliva and took a step back unconsciously. He shouted, Zhu Lei. A muscular young man rushed out from the corner and aimed his huge fist at Wang Teng. Be careful. Son, be careful. Li Xiaomei and Wang Yanan's expressions changed. They shouted at the same time. Wang Teng snorted. He also raised his fist and welcomed his punch like a man. Crack. The sound of bones cracking spooked everyone at the scene. Li Xiaomei and Wang Yanan's faces turned white. They thought that Wang Ting was hurt. But, the next moment, a scream of agony came out from the muscular young man's mouth. His entire body flew out like a golf ball and slammed heavily into the wall. His arm was completely distorted. The fats on Bao Ziqing's face started to tremble uncontrollably when he saw this gruesome sight. Cold sweat kept dripping down his forehead. Wang Teng glanced at the man. Then, he looked out of the window. There was a tall building right opposite. Is that your company? Wang Teng asked. So what if it is? Bao Ziqing's legs were getting weak, but he still forced himself to remain calm. Wang Teng said, Someone told me that we can't keep a low profile forever. When the time comes to display our abilities, we should display them. If not, other people would step on you. In the past, I didn't agree with what he said. Now, I think his words make sense. After he finished speaking, he patted the weapon carrier casket beside him lightly. He took a battle sword out from the casket. What are you planning to do? Bao Ziqing shouted in fear and astonishment as he retreated continuously. Wang Ting glanced at him without any expression. He walked in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. Suddenly, a red force exploded out of his body. It seemed as though he was wearing a red gown. The red force raged in the air. Slash. He waved the sword. The sword light cut the air in half. The window instantly exploded. The red sword glow cut through the walls of the building opposite them, leaving a long and burnt black sword mark. Everyone was flabbergasted. No one spoke for a long time. Martial warrior. Bao Ziking's face had turned completely white. He kept stuttering and spent a long time before he spat out these two words. How is that possible? Jiao Guiren looked at Wang Ting in a daze. His mind was filled with Wang Ting's back view when he was executing his move just now. He was utterly shocked. How could this playful and cocky child be a martial warrior? He wasn't able to accept that the useless son Wang Shenghua always mentioned was actually a martial warrior. This was so sarcastic. If this was useless, what was useful? A general rank. All the founding members of the company had the same expression on their faces. None of them could accept the fact that Wang Ting was a martial warrior. This was nonsense. Wang Ting was still so young. How could he become a martial warrior? Li Xiaomei and Wang Yanan felt dumbfounded at first. Then, immediately after that, happiness gushed out of their hearts like eternal springs. They understood clearly what it meant to become a martial warrior. Now, as long as Wang Ting was around, their company would never collapse. A martial warrior could suppress his opponent with his abilities if anyone wanted to seize his assets with evil intentions. He could even sue the other person in court. The winner would definitely be the martial warrior. A martial warrior could even kill someone for a valid reason. They could kill first and inform later. This was the rank of martial warriors in society. Martial warriors were superior. Look at the cut of the sword clearly. If you dare to play any more tricks, this sword wouldn't be cutting your building the next time. It will be your body. I don't know if you're able to withstand one of my attacks. Wang Ting looked at Bao Ziqing and said indifferently. Then, he glanced around him. His gaze landed on Jiao Guiren for a second before he looked at other people. However, no one dared to look back at him. No matter what your thoughts are, keep a low profile and remain humble until my father comes back. Once he returns, those that want to leave can do so. You can follow whoever you want to follow. I will not stop you. The entire meeting room was dead silent. The people that had thoughts of leaving were overwhelmed with regrets. This was a martial warrior. With a martial warrior guarding the Wang family, there was no need to worry about the company's growth. At that time, as the founding members of the company, their assets would definitely increase exponentially. But, now, after Wang Shenghua came back, there would probably be a massive cleanup. Anyone that harmed them by taking advantage of the situation and those that didn't have a firm mentality would not be able to stay. No matter how good the prospects were, it had nothing to do with them. How many millions did they lose? Their hearts. It hurt so much. The most important thing was, they didn't dare to act rashly now. If not, they would face the revenge of a martial warrior. Their ending would be even worse than the reformation that would happen after Wang Shenghua came back. Jiao Guiren's face turned green. He was the person who had offended the Wang family the most. Bao Ziqing had promised to give him 10% of the company shares. That was why he agreed to make the shares of the company drop so that it was easier for a merger to happen. Looking at the situation now, everything he did was for nothing. He wouldn't have any shares of the new company, and his journey in Xintong had come to an end. Very soon, he would get kicked out by Wang Shenghua, and he might even seek revenge. He probably wouldn't be able to survive in Donghai anymore. Wang Teng disregarded these people who had different thoughts. He brought Li Xiaomei out of the room and asked, "Mom, what happened to Dad?" "Your dad went to the neighboring province to discuss a project. There was an issue with the interests of both sides, so he wasn't able to reach an agreement. However, the other party broke the rules and detained your father with the help of a local tyrant. They won't release him unless he agrees to sign the contract," Li Xiaomei explained with a worried expression. Wang Ting had already displayed the ability of a martial warrior, so she no longer treated him as a child. "Grandfather has already sent people over to help, but there haven't been any results," Wang Yanan added at the side. "What project is it? Why is Dad so stupid? He can just agree to them. We might lose some money, But life is more important, Wang Ting frowned and said. It's not that simple. There's something wrong with this project. It has huge implications. They want to use your father as the scapegoat. Li Xiumei knew some things, but she didn't know the exact details. Wang Ting sensed that there was something strange. Was this a scheme by those people inside? However, in his past life, they only attacked the Wang family after he attended university. Chapter 90. The boss privacy. I will make a trip personally. Wang Ting's mind worked at full cylinders. It didn't matter if it was a scheme by those people inside. His father was detained, and he must fetch his back. Will there be a problem? Li Xiumei was still a little worried. Don't worry, Mom. You have seen your son's ability. I didn't even release 1/10 of my potential just now, Wang Ting comforted her. In that case, be careful. Don't get hurt. One was her son, while the other was her husband. She was worried about both, but she could only rely on her son now. Fortunately, her son had already grown up. When the pillar of the house collapsed, he was able to support the family. Wang Ting nodded. He turned and prepared to leave. I will go with you. It will be more convenient for me to contact grandfather's men, Wang Yanan suddenly said. That's right, you can go together. You can take care of each other too. Li Xiumei nodded. Since Li Xiumei had already agreed, Wang Ting had nothing to say. The two of them got in the car and left Donghai City. They entered the expressway and headed towards Jiang City in the neighboring province. Along the way, Wang Yanan glanced at the rearview mirror with the corner of her eyes while driving to size up Wang Ting. Wang Ting was sitting in the back seat at this moment. He had his eyes closed and was holding the rectangular casket with one hand. He wasn't moving at all. He was extremely quiet, and there were no emotions on his face. He really felt like a different person now. Whether it was his aura or his way of doing things, they were worlds apart from the past Wang Ting. In the past, everyone just felt that he was playful, ignorant, bossy, arrogant. But today, when she saw him again, his performance surprised her. The most important thing was, her younger cousin was actually a powerful martial warrior. Martial warrior. If grandfather knew that her young cousin Wang Ting was a martial warrior, he would be so happy that he wouldn't be able to sleep. Honestly speaking, when you suddenly realize that someone whom you were familiar with, someone you thought was ordinary, was actually extremely powerful, the feeling was indescribable. At this moment, she recalled the scene when Wang Ting had swung his sword. Everyone was dumbstruck at that second. All the schemes and tricks were useless in front of true power. In the future, their Wang family would have a martial warrior guarding them. The Wang family would definitely climb to a higher position. Also, if Wang Ting continued to become more powerful, the future of the Wang family. Wang Yanan shook her head. She shouldn't be thinking so far ahead. She should save her second uncle first. It shouldn't be a problem since her martial warrior cousin had come personally. They drove for 5 hours and finally reached Jiang City. Along the way, Wang Yanan didn't interrupt Wang Ting. She drove for the entire journey, so she seemed a little tired now. Have we reached? Wang Ting felt the car stop. He opened his eyes and asked. Yes. Let's find the person whom grandfather sent to negotiate first to understand the whole situation. Wang Yanan parked the car outside a hotel and brought Wang Ting into a room. A man around 30 years old greeted them. Manager Wang. Tell me about the situation. Wang Yanan went directly to the point. The man nodded and said, it's not working. No matter what conditions we promise them, the other party is unwilling to let him go. They seemed to have other motives. What is the background of the other party? Wang Ting frowned and asked. Iron Fist Clan. They have more than 10 advanced stage martial disciples. No one dares to provoke them, the man replied with a solemn expression. In that case, there shouldn't be a problem if we uproot them completely, right? Wang Ting asked nonchalantly. That's right, the man nodded and replied. The moment he finished speaking, he suddenly realized what he had said. What did this young man mean? He looked at Wang Ting with a puzzled and shocked gaze. Wang Yanan was looking at Wang Ting in astonishment too. Uproot them completely? Was this what her cousin was thinking? If those people know that they had offended a martial warrior, they would probably be overwhelmed with regret. There are too many people in the day. Let's act at night. It was already past 3 in the afternoon. They could only wait slowly. Although he wanted to save Wang Shengguo as soon as possible, Wang Ting knew that he mustn't act rashly. Also, based on Wang Yanan's guess, the other party wouldn't hurt Wang Shengguo since they wanted to use him as their scapegoat. Hence, he was temporarily safe. There was no need to worry. Wang Yanan was tired after driving for a long time. She booked a room and took a rest. In the evening, the three of them had dinner and waited until 10 p.m. before heading to the headquarters of the Iron Fist clan. Wang Shengguo was locked up there all this while. The headquarters of the Iron Fist clan was not far away. A black sedan stopped in the dark, and Wang Ting got out of the car. "Wait for me here. I will be back soon." He spoke to Wang Yanan and then carried his weapon carrier casket, heading towards the entrance of the Iron Fist clan. Manager Wang, is young Master Wang planning to save his father all alone? The man that came along didn't understand the situation. He found Wang Ting a little daring as he looked at his back view. Would he be all right? The other party was the Iron Fist clan. They had more than 10 advanced stage martial disciples. This young Master Wang seemed like an ordinary person. How was he able to deal with those powerful advanced stage martial disciples? Watch and see. Wang Yanan was also worried, but she felt proud for some reason. This was her younger cousin. What will he do? A question popped up in her mind. Wang Yanan couldn't help but look at the entrance of the Iron Fist clan, which was enshrouded in darkness. Wang Ting walked to the entrance and knocked on the metal door outside. "Who is it?" A vigilant voice came from inside. "Delivery man." Wang Teng's figure was hidden in the dark. "Who are you kidding? What delivery can you make at this time of the night? Say, what is your intention?" The person behind the door obviously didn't believe him. "Brother, this is something your boss ordered." "Something the boss ordered? What is it?" The person was suspicious, but he still asked. What if it was really something their boss ordered and he didn't open the door? If the item wasn't delivered, his boss would look for him for answers. "I can't tell you. It's private," Wang Teng replied. "You're still trying to fool me. Tell me what it is. If you can't, you must have been sent by the other factions to create trouble for our Iron Fist clan." The person sneered. "Are you sure you want me to say it?" "Say it. All right, since you asked so sincerely, I will show mercy and tell you." He ordered. "I love a matchstick, an aphrodisiac that got its name from a novel." "What?" The person didn't manage to react in time. "I love a matchstick," Wang Tung shouted. "I love a matchstick, oh my god." The person remembered something and gasped in shock. Their boss fetish was indescribable. "You're afraid now, right? This is your boss privacy. It's not good if you know too much," Wang Tung said slowly. "Wait, brother, listen to me." The man hurriedly opened the door and dashed in front of Wang Teng. He was agitated. "I didn't ask anything just now, and you didn't say anything." "No, you asked, and I answered," Wang Teng said honestly. The young man who came out of the door turned green in anger. "Damn it, can you speak properly?" Chapter 91, I don't mind. Falling to hell. "Brother, let's talk at the side." The young man held Wang Teng's arm and seemed very enthusiastic. "Oh right, what is inside the rectangular box you're carrying?" He couldn't help but ask when he saw the weapon carrier casket behind Wang Teng's back. "Oh, this is the delivery box. Do you want to look at the contents?" asked Wang Teng calmly. "No, no." The young man shook his head like a rattle drum. He pulled Wang Ting to a corner and took out a few $100s from his pockets. "Brother, it must be difficult for you to run around in the middle of the night to support yourself. This is my sincerity. I didn't ask you anything just now, right?" Wang Ting rubbed the $100 notes in his hand and pretended to be a money lover. He nodded and said, "I think that you didn't ask me anything." "That's right, I didn't ask, and you didn't answer. Let's live harmoniously in peace." The young man nodded his head in satisfaction. Can I enter now? Wang Teng asked. Go ahead, go ahead. The young man waved his hand. Then, he asked again, oh right, do you know where our boss lives? I don't. Wang Ting shook his head. He lives at. Never mind, I'll bring you there. The young man seemed a little worried, so he turned around and locked the door. Then, he personally led Wang Ting into the headquarters. It was late at night. There was no one walking around the place. The young man took the lead, and soon, they arrived outside a door. Our boss lives here. Remember, I didn't ask anything. The young man still felt disturbed, so he reminded Wang Teng again like a nagging mother. Don't worry. Your boss won't know anything. Wang Ting gave a mysterious expression and nodded. Knock, knock, knock. The young man finally knocked on the door. A sound was heard from inside the room. Who is it? Boss, it's me, Little Wu. There's a delivery here for you. Little Wu? Oh, the one guarding the door? What is it? The voice inside turned suspicious. The footsteps came closer and reached the door. Then, the doorknob turned. The door was about to open. However, suddenly, boom! A huge force surged out from inside. The door burst into pieces, and a figure holding a battle blade dashed out. Wang Teng was slightly shocked. But, he reacted in time. He activated the runes on his weapon carrier casket. Clang! The battle sword jumped out and landed in his hand. Wang Teng turned around and blocked the battle blade that was aimed at him. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. The two of them separated instantly. The muscular man, who flew out of the room, glared at Wang Teng. There's indeed a problem. Who sent you? On the other side, the young man called Little Wu was shocked, looking at the two people in a daze. He didn't know what was happening. Wasn't he here to send I love a matchstick? What are you doing? This rectangular box isn't the delivery item? Why did a weapon jump out of it? Are you bullying me because I didn't study well? Little Wu wanted to cry. At the moment, he had turned into a curious little baby with 1,000 questions in his heart. Idiot, how dare you let outsiders in so easily? I will take care of you later, the muscular man shouted at Little Wu. Little Wu shrunk his neck in fear. I'm dead. I angered the boss. What should I do? I'm so nervous. Please help. At the same time, loud footsteps were heard from different directions. The other members of the Iron Fist clan had obviously received the news and were rushing over. Within a few seconds, the place was packed with people. I didn't expect the boss of the Iron Fist clan to be an extreme martial disciple, Wang Ting said in surprise. If I didn't have the ability, how could I sit in this position? You amazed me too. You are so young, but you are already so powerful. You should have a bright future ahead. What a pity. You will die here today. The boss of the Iron Fist clan was quite self-absorbed. He started shaking his head in pity. He looked at Wang Ting and wanted to catch any hints of fear or panic on his face. Unfortunately, there was nothing. In such a situation, the young man opposite him remained calm and composed. There was no uneasiness in his gaze. Are all your men here? Asked Wang Teng in a soft voice. The boss of the Iron Fist clan could sense the contempt in his nonchalant voice. He was so angry that he smiled. These people are enough to chop you into a pile of meat. Then, his face turned cold, and his expression became sinister. Kill him. The clan members swarmed towards Wang Ting. They were all holding weapons in their hands, and they smashed them on Wang Ting's body. Boom. Wang Ting's gaze turned cold as the force inside his body exploded. It dispersed around him like shockwaves, throwing off the people charging at the front. Wang Ting held the battle sword in his hand and charged into the crowd. At this moment, his heart was exceptionally cold and hard. Every slash of his sword was a life lost. Every fist he punched broke his opponent's bones. Blood splattered everywhere, and the scene was extremely tragic. He didn't want to kill anyone, but since they wanted to kill him, he decided to have a good time killing them. He would kill until these people were fearful of him. Martial warrior, the boss of the Iron Fist clan was struck dumb with astonishment and shock. His voice was shrill as he shouted in terror. He looked as though he had seen a ghost. The other members of the clan finally knew what kind of opponent they were facing. They turned pale with fright. Run. He's a martial warrior. We can't beat him. Damn it, how did we provoke this powerful figure? In the end, some people started escaping in a flurry. They didn't even have the courage to face Wang Ting. However, Wang Ting was immersed in the killing. He was like a raging bear charging into a pack of wolves. He didn't care who he killed. Wherever he went, cries of pain followed. On the other side, the boss of the Iron Fist clan knew that he couldn't defeat Wang Ting, so he attempted to run away amidst the chaos. Wang Ting stepped on the ground, and his entire body shot into the air like a cannonball. He landed heavily in front of the boss of the Iron Fist clan and swung his sword at him. Die. The boss of the Iron Fist clan was panic-stricken. He raised his blade to block the attack. The next instant, a massive force like the weight of a mountain bore down on him. His battle blade cracked and broke on the spot. Splurt. He vomited a mouthful of blood. The boss of the Iron Fist clan couldn't control his body and kept stepping back. He had to take 6 to 7 steps to get his footing. Wang Ting had shown mercy this time. Who asked you to catch Wang Shengguo? Wang Ting asked. Wang Shengguo? The boss of the Iron Fist clan finally knew the source of the disaster. Afraid that he would infuriate Wang Ting if he spoke a second too late, he hurriedly said, I don't know either. I think they come from capital Xia. The leader of the group is a martial warrior too. I have no ability to resist. That's why I laid my hands on Wang Shengguo. Capital Xia. Martial warrior. Wang Ting squinted. I had no other choice. Please spare my life, the boss of the Iron Fist clan pleaded. Sigh. Wang Ting heaved a breath. I want to spare your life, but my heart doesn't allow me to. The next moment, fire force spurted out. The terrifying flames engulfed the boss of the Iron Fist clan. No. The boss of the Iron Fist clan shouted in fear. But soon, his shouts were replaced by screams of agony. Ah, please show mercy. Wang Teng's expression remained indifferent. He displayed no emotions on his face as he watched the boss getting engulfed by the flames. At this instant, his heartlessness was displayed blatantly. He was never soft-hearted towards his enemies. Boss is dead. The bunch of clan members that wanted to fight with Wang Ting until death swallowed their salivas when they saw this scene. They felt their lips turning dry. A chill ran through their entire body. Wang Ting turned and scanned the crowd. In an instant, he charged between them and started his massacre. Leave no chance for revival. Ah, hurry up and run. This person is crazy. He wants to kill us all, someone cried shrilly. The terrified voice echoed throughout the Iron Fist clan headquarters. Devil, you are a devil. Don't kill me, don't kill me. I just joined the clan. I have never killed anyone. Devil, you will go to hell sooner or later. We will be waiting for you below. At this moment, Wang Ting turned into a demon and destroyed everything in its path. He would kill anyone that posed a threat to his family. Normally, he could laugh and fool around, but he wouldn't be soft-hearted at this moment. In order to allow my family to live under the sun, I don't mind falling to hell. Chapter 92. Dad, Mom is asking you to go home for dinner. What is happening? Wang Shengguo was tied in a room. He could faintly hear the commotion outside, but he couldn't figure out the exact details. Sigh, I wonder how they are doing. He couldn't help but think of Li Xiaomei and Wang Ting. They must be worried sick. How did those people find me? There are no grudges between us, so it's impossible that they will make me their scapegoat for no reason. Wang Shengguo pondered about the cause and the consequences, but he couldn't find any reason. He had seen the document. If he signed his name on it, the entire Xinting group, including their Wang family, would suffer terribly. Wait, the Wang family. Is their target the Wang family? A chill ran through his body when he thought of this possibility. They are cutting the ground under our foot. They want to destroy the entire Wang family. At first, he didn't want to implicate his wife and son. However, after straightening his thoughts, there was even more reason for him not to sign the document. Just as he was thinking about this, he suddenly heard the door opening. His eyes were covered with a black cloth, so he couldn't see the person walking in. He could only raise his head and turn in the direction of the door. "Dad, Mom is asking you to go home for dinner." A familiar voice entered Wang Shengguo's ears. "Little Ting." Wang Shengguo thought that his hearing was going wild. However, this playful tone really sounded like his son. A second later, the black cloth was removed. He finally saw the person who came. It really was Wang Ting. "Son, what are you doing here?" Wang Shengguo was stunned. "If I hadn't come, you might have been locked here for God knows how long," Wang Teng replied helplessly. He cut the ropes binding Wang Shengguo and helped him up. "All right, let's go home. Mom must be worried." When Wang Shengguo stood up and tried to walk, he staggered. He had been tied up for a long time, so his legs were numb. Wang Ting hurriedly held him. At the same time, he didn't forget to tease his father. "Dad, you haven't reached 50, but your legs are already out of shape." "Bullshit, your dad is very healthy. I won't pant even if I climb 10 flights of stairs," Wang Shengguo refuted furiously. "You're really free. Why are you climbing the stairs when you can take the lift?" Wang Teng complained. Wang Shengguo was speechless. He felt that his intelligence would drop drastically whenever he talked to this brat. "You haven't told me how you came in. Did they agree to let me go? Did you promise them something?" Wang Shengguo immediately got anxious when he thought of the document. "Did they ask you to sign a document? You must never sign it. That's a huge trap. If we drop inside, our Wang family will be doomed." "Don't worry. I'm not so stupid. The people from the Iron Fist clan are very easy to talk to. I shared the truth and reasoned with them. I also chatted with them about life and ambitions. It took so much effort before they finally recognized their mistakes and agreed to let you go." Wang Teng spouted nonsense. "Are you kidding me?" Wang Shengguo's expression turned strange. "Share the truth? Reasoned with them? Talking about life and ambitions? Can you reason with the Iron Fist clan? Are they so free that they will chat about life and ambition with you?" Wang Shengguo suddenly felt like hitting him. "Are you trying to fool me? Do you think I'm stupid? Why do you think they let you go?" Wang Teng retorted. Then, he walked out of the room with Wang Shengguo. He purposely evaded the areas with corpses. He had even changed into clean clothes before he met Wang Shengguo. Soon, he brought Wang Shengguo out of the Iron Fist clan. Wang Shengguo couldn't get anything out of Wang Teng's mouth. In the end, he turned around and curiously glanced at the Iron Fist clan. It was so quiet he felt uneasy. The two of them met Wang Yanan. "Uncle." Wang Yanan heaved a sigh of relief when she saw them. At the same time, she had a new understanding of Wang Teng's capability. He had gone in the tiger's den, the Iron Fist clan, alone and came out unscathed. He even brought his father out safely. This wasn't something ordinary people could achieve. "Yanan, sorry to trouble you to make a trip here." Wang Shengguo thanked Wang Yanan. "Uncle, there's no need to be polite with me. We are family," Wang Yanan smiled and said. The man who came along with them was still in shock. Mr. Wang's son is a diamond in the rough. Glancing at the abnormally silent Iron Fist clan, his head turned numb. Wang Teng had gone in for merely less than half an hour. How could those people agree to let Wang Shengguo go in such a short period? Could it be? He thought of a possibility. He secretly glanced at Wang Ting with his hair standing on the ends. Gasp. "Mr. Wang, should we rest in Jiang City for the night or go back to Donghai?" the man asked. "Let's go back to Donghai." Wang Shengguo was eager to go back, so he replied without hesitation. The other party nodded. He drove the car to the highway and sped their way back to Donghai. They only returned to Donghai at 6 in the morning. The car stopped outside the Fuhua Villa district. Wang Teng and Wang Shengguo got off the car. "Uncle, I will be going back first. I can inform grandfather too in case he's worried." Wang Yanan lowered the car window and said. "All right, I won't keep you anymore. You had a long day. Go back and have a good rest." Wang Shengguo nodded. Wang Yanan also nodded in return. She then waved at Wang Teng. "Cousin, I'll be leaving first. Let's meet up when we're free. Our families should get to know each other better. Okay, elder sister. Have a safe journey. Wang Teng smiled and nodded. Wang Yanan was right about one thing. They were relatives. Blood was thicker than water. In his past life, their relatives would argue with one another, but in times of crisis, for instance, when the Wang family collapsed, they still helped each other out. This was something outsiders couldn't do. Wang Shengguo was stunned by Wang Yanan's attitude towards Wang Ting. In the past, Wang Yanan treated Wang Ting with disdain. After all, she was the favored child of God, outstanding in all areas. Wang Ting was different. He was useless and playful, so he couldn't merge into their small circle at all. But, now, Wang Yanan was exceptionally gentle towards Wang Ting. This attitude made Wang Shengguo relieved and gratified. After Wang Yanan left, Wang Shengguo and Wang Ting went home. Li Xiaomei didn't sleep the entire night. She was waiting on the sofa in the living room, her face rife with worry and agitation. Aunt Li didn't go home, either. She kept Li Xiaomei company in case she felt alone. She instantly noticed Wang Teng and his father when they opened the door and walked in. She cried happily, "Madam, Mr. Wang and young Master Wang are back." "What?" Li Xiaomei raised her head. The instant she saw Wang Shengguo, tears almost gushed out of her eyes. Wang Shengguo walked forward and hugged Li Xiaomei. He patted her back gently. "I'm back. I'm sorry for making you worry. Tilda Mom, Dad, stop this PDA. My goosebumps are dropping all over the floor." Wang Ting yawned and rolled his eyes. Li Xiaomei struggled out of Wang Shengguo's arms with a red face. "Stupid brat." Wang Shengguo glared at Wang Ting. "Mr. Wang, have a seat. I will make some food." Aunt Chen smiled as she said, "You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.